Chapter 141 _ Monkey katakana middle dot d katakana middle dot dragon. The mysterious black figure raised his hand and lifted the cloak and hood behind his head, revealing a long black hair like a lion's sideburns and a strange checkered tattoo on his left face. There is no one else in the world who wears this kind of dress. The identity of the comer is ready to be revealed. The current leader of the Revolutionary Army, the father of Straw Hat Luffy, Meng Qilong. After seeing the dragon's appearance, the warring state's heart sank to the bottom in an instant. The appearance of Lauren has made this war extremely tragic, not only seriously injuring 2 of the 3 generals, but also causing heavy casualties in the new generation of the Navy. In this case, if there is a monkey dragon, Marin Fando is afraid that it will really become history. Warring states first took out a snow-white anti-eavesdropping phone bug from one side, and then dialed the number on the other phone bug. This is the call to the 5 old stars. Ma Lin Fanduo needs reinforcements. After the god of destruction, Lauren, the dragon also came. We all saw it on the live broadcast. Reinforcements are coming soon. I have already cut off the signal transmission of the video phone bug. How can there still be pictures? The voice from Wu Laoxing was silent for a moment before it sounded again. We thought you had the backup to clean up the current situation before continuing the live broadcast, but it turned out that Ma Lin Fando was inserted into the I, and you didn't realize it. Immediately. Send someone to find out the video phone bugs in Marin Fando, and if it doesn't work, use anti-eavesdropping phone bugs to block all the phone bugs together, and the Navy's face will be gone. After a reprimand, the other side of the phone worm no longer no sound. Just as Wu Laoxing said, if everything that just happened is made public, the majesty and weight of the Navy will be in full force. A trace of anger appeared on the face of the warring states, and he gritted his teeth. Go and give all the videophone bugs present. I turned it out. Come, destroy it on the spot. The soldiers around were startled by the sudden anger of the warring states period, and began to perform their tasks tremblingly. In the battlefield, because the photon-moving kiwi can't change direction midway without the help of other objects for refraction, it can only move forward in a straight line. Seeing that it is about to collide with the dragon, the kiwi has no choice but to move his body. The image emerged again. Does your appearance here mean that the Revolutionary Army is ready to openly become an enemy of the world government? I'm the only one who came to Marin Fando today, and I didn't come as the leader of the Revolutionary Army. Long Gujing Wubo's face was expressionless, and he said lightly, I came to avenge my son as a father. The father of Straw Hat Luffy, the bloodline of extreme evil. The yellow monkey made a triangle with his hands, opened it slightly, and 4 beams flew out of his hands, and at the same time, it turned into a beam and passed over from the dragon's side. At a time, the 5 beams quickly flew to 5 different directions, allowing people to fully identify which one is the real body of Kayabu. Of course, this is only for others, because Kayabu is still wearing the target locked by Laurent, so when he saw 555 beams in different directions, Laurent identified the real body of Kayabu. At this moment, Kizaru played a careful thought. Among the 5 beams, the most eye-catching one was a laser beam that flew straight like an execution platform. His body was actually hidden in the beam flying towards Ma Lin Fando. I found you. Sensing the location of the yellow monkey, Luo Lun didn't even think about going straight to the light beam where the yellow monkey was, and at the same time provided the direction for the clueless dragon. Although it is not clear how Luo Ren identified the location of the yellow monkey, Kei Long was still chasing after Lauren. Looking at the dragon closely following him, Lauren waved his hand and shouted, Uncle, it's not a good habit to grab a head. You hurry away, this head belongs to me. Mr. Destruction God, our purpose is the same. The dragon's eyes stared at the flash in front of him. Please let me give Pulsolino a move on behalf of my injured son. 1 move is enough. Okay, but it's okay, there's only one trick. Thank you, Mr. Destruction. After speaking, the hand under the dragon hood robe waved slightly. The originally calm Ma Lin Fando was suddenly violent, and the clear sky was shrouded in rolling black clouds, and a little thunderlight could be seen faintly flickering in the clouds. Immediately afterwards, the dragon stretched out a right hand from the robe. At this time, the index finger and middle finger of the dragon's right hand were bent together, the distance between the ring finger and the middle finger was separated, and the ring finger and the little finger were bent together, and the thumb was slightly bent. Claw posture. The jet black armed color is domineering and attached to 3 claws. Above, the strange tattoo on the dragon's face faintly exudes an evil crimson light, and the left hand pointed to the sky, and a huge thunderbolt fell from the sky, accurately smashing the flash of galloping in the air. If the lightning strikes the streamer in nature, there will be no interference between the two, but when the two are created by the fruit ability of 2 people, the situation is different. At the moment of being struck by the falling lightning, due to the change in the transmission medium, the straight light became, it was torn apart, and the yellow monkey came out of the streamer with a scorched black face and an embarrassed face. Stabilize his body. A strong storm was bizarrely lifted out of thin air from under the yellow monkey, and threw the yellow monkey into the air, and then the dragon rushed in front of the yellow monkey like an arrow from the string. The claw, with a purple-black luster. Like a sharp blade, it slashed through the chest of the yellow monkey. Dragon hook claw. Dragon claw, wrapped in armed domineering. Beneath it, Kizaru's body was torn in half neatly like a piece of paper. The wound was exceptionally smooth, and there was not even a trace of blood flowing out. Looking at the dragon's incomparably sharp claws, Lauren, who was watching from a distance, burst into a bright and strange light. The dragon's move awakened Lauren like a daigo, which may be due to the foundation of martial arts in the previous life, or because of Lauren's straightforward character. When researching new moves, Lauren always subconsciously focused on the foundation of boxing. On the development, never thought of other attack methods. And so far, most of the opponents that Lauren has encountered are either accustomed to using weapons or possessing various devil fruit abilities, and have not shown too many taiju moves, so Lauren has never had the opportunity to learn from them. Until today, the Dragon Claw Fist, displayed by the dragon. Just now, Lauren realized the brand new physical attack method. With the same force, the speed and strength of claw strikes are better than fists. Under the stimulation of the dragon, the prototype of the new move in Lauren's mind finally took shape. To perfection, and finally fully formed. Chapter 142 _ Evil Ghost in Hell. But it was a pity for Lauren that, before he could let Kizaru experience his new move, he was instantly killed by the dragon. However, at this moment, Lauren suddenly discovered a problem. Kyabu was obviously dead, but the target he planted for him had not disappeared. Through the detection of the domineering, Lauren can see his target. He was moving towards the execution platform at a high speed. The speed was astounding. Who else could there be 2 other yellow monkeys at the same time? Luo Lun reached out and tentatively touched the yellow monkey lying on the ground. The corpse, a creepy and strange scene happened. Lauren's hand actually passed through without hindrance, and then, the surface of the corpse emitted a faint golden light, and the whole corpse turned into a ball of light and split apart. The lifelike corpse is actually a fake. In essence, the pictures visible to the human eyes are mapped by the light reflected by different things into the eyes. The Kiwi uses this to create a fake image with the remaining light. The corpse confuses Lauren and the dragon. Lauren looked at the empty space in front of him with tears and laughter. We've all been deceived. Uncle Tattoo, do you want to go to the front with me to settle accounts with him? Is it another Pelusolino trick? Looking at the scene in front of him, Long with a displeased expression, retracted his hand to his cuff. Since I let him run away, I'll go to the execution ground to join in the fun. I'll see how long he can hide. Agreement has been reached. Lauren and Long are speeding towards the execution platform side by side. The 2 emperors and the leader of the revolutionary army are about to meet. It is conceivable that this worst war in history is about to usher in a new peak. After Luffy made a riot in Pushin City, this time honored prison is in unprecedented chaos. All the doors of every cell are open, and all prisoners on the 1st to 5th floors have escaped from the prison. The surroundings were in a mess, and it looked as if there had been a big earthquake. But even in this chaotic scene, the 6th layer of the city's prison, the infinite hell is still the same as usual, and it looks extraordinarily peaceful. At this moment, a group of mysterious people quietly came to the door of the 6th floor prison, and opened the door of the 6th floor that had been sealed for a long time. For 20 years, only one person has escaped from this infinite hell where monster-level characters who are too vicious and need to be erased from history have escaped at the cost of a pair of legs. Now, for the first time, this gate has been invaded by outsiders. And was opened. After this team of different shapes entered the infinite hell, the deadly silent prison instantly became. The voice of people was full of people. Hey hey hey, the little devil over there, let me out. Take me away, I have a lot of treasures outside, just take them out, and those treasures are all yours. Why don't you take me out? Don't you think this male-only team is a bit boring? At one time, countless coercive and enticing shouts came out of each cell, with only one purpose, to leave the infinite hell. At the front of the team, a fat man with a black face and a black beard walked to the center of the prison and opened his arms and laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha. What a gloomy place, everyone here is famous when they go out. What about the great villain? It's really a pity to die in this prison. Now the war is breaking out in Marlene Fando. I'm recruiting a group of partners to have a big fight with me. Any of you want to go out with me? When Yan, the prisoners turned red one by one. Eyes, screaming desperately, hoping to attract attention. Me, take me out. Let me out and kill them all. Ha ha ha, my boat can't hold so many people. Only the strong are matched with my boat. How can I know who is the strongest among you? The smile in the eyes of the black figure was mixed with a bloody meaning. I think of it, no matter what. What means do you use? The one who survives in the end will go with me. Ha 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 ha. The huge infinite hell has become extremely quiet. The expressions on the faces of many prisoners are instantly frozen. Most of them are life imprisonment. This is a big gamble that uses life as a bargaining chip for freedom. Not everyone dares to bet. The quiet atmosphere did not last long, and with a terrifying cry, a prisoner in the corner of the prison bit the neck of the person in front of him alive with his mouth. Bright red blood flowed out from the corner of the man's mouth and fell to the ground of the prison, and the sweet smell of blood gradually spread and filled the entire prison. The breath of blood is like an evil key, which opens everyone's heart to kill, and the huge infinite hell suddenly becomes. Chaos is incomparable. Every prisoner is madly rushing towards the prisoners beside him, unfolding the most tragic in the most primitive way. The slaughter, roars and screams one after another, the hell-like slaughter began. Ha 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 ha, fight as much as you like. Looking at the scene in front of him, the black figure turned around with a mad laugh, and the faint light from the prison shone on his face, reflecting his face. It is the new Shichibukai, known as the Blackbeard Martial Tich. The flowing blood dyed the ground of the entire prison red. As time went by, fewer and fewer people stood in the field. The most vicious person in history was about to climb up from hell at the same time as the bloody slaughter like hell was being carried out secretly in the advanced city. The War of Marin Vandu also reached a critical moment. Lauren, Whitebeard, and Dragon had a final confrontation with the Navy, led by Sengoku, Garp, the three generals, Shichibukai, and the strongest shield of the Tenryu. Just now, when the pirates were about to cross the last line of Marlene Vando to save Ace, the reinforcements sent by the world government came in time from Marihoa, led by the masked man known as the strongest shield of the Tianlong people. Countless secret agents with strength equal to or higher than a lieutenant general came to Marin Fando. At the same time, Aokiji, who was seriously injured and in a coma, finally woke up. Kizaru and Garp returned to the battlefield after emergency treatment of the wounds. The arrival of the additional troops brought a new arrangement and combination of the battle situation. The two men of Garp and warring states were entangled with Whitebeard, and the masked man fought with the dragon. The remaining Aokiji, Kizaru, and Akainu came together to deal with Lauren, who symbolized the highest combat power of the Navy, shot at one person at the same time unprecedentedly. Ice, lava, and lasers, three completely different elements slammed into Lauren from all directions and surrounded him. Hey hey. Facing the powerful and sharp offensive of the three people, Lauren smiled meaningfully. The new hatred and the old hatred, I will understand it here today. Push a friend's new work. Da Sui Gen is a tyrant. The great Sui country was turbulent in the wind and rain, with the heroic heart, the courage of the overlord, the dragon and the snake in the troubled times, the original disputes, the first man's romance, and the fame outside the world, is the true nature of the overlord. Whoever crosses the sword immediately, for me, the great Sui Tianzhao, the dragon elephant subdues the devil and shakes the world, the big summer dragon bird cuts the 8 wastes, wakes up with a killing knife, and hugs the waist of the beauty drunk. This is the story of a modern youth and a unique system, who crossed the end of the Sui dynasty and smashed a road of blood and bones, making the Sui dynasty become the hegemon of the celestial dynasty again, and making all nations fall to their feet. I can't write more than the beauty of the country and the mountains, and the pride is like a song. Summer reading every day is fun, charge 100 and get 500 coupons. Immediate top-up event time, August 7th to August 9th. Chapter 143 8 Childhood Girls. The king's engine is fully on. The face of the common attack of the 3 generals, Lauren did not dare to be careless, and at the beginning of the battle, he entered the form of the god of destruction. Light flashed slightly, and Lauren's eyes were clear for a while, and the trajectory of the laser, ice bird, and lava bullets all over the sky became very clear in his eyes. Dazzlingly left and right in each attack gap. Shuttle, go straight to the green pheasant. Facing the 3-person siege of Lauren is not easy. If the seriously injured Aokiji can be eliminated first, Lauren's pressure will be much less. The 3 of them make Lauren's wish come true. Just when Lauren's fist was about to hit the green pheasant, a blinking laser blocked Lauren's path with lightning speed. Looking at the laser beam with fierce firepower, Lauren naturally couldn't resist Kayabu's attack and Aokiji's blood exchange, so he had to pause the offensive and take a step back. However, before Laurent could stabilize his body, a giant lava fist the size of a small warship slammed into his position with billowing smoke. The amazing heat of the lava made the land under Laurent dry instantly, cracking every inch. One can imagine the fate of being hit. Although he missed the dodging time, there was not a trace of panic on Laurent's face. He bowed his hands behind him, and then blasted forward at the same time, and his strong energy brought out 2 huge white beams of light. Elephant profound truth 2 stacks of waves. The monstrous white light suddenly flashed, and the majestic energy was vented frantically against the giant lava fist. The impact and the lava tore each other, confronted, and hit a loud bang, enough to cover the sky and the lava giant. After all, the fist did not withstand the impact of the 2 waves of Shixiang profound truth, and it exploded like fireworks, scattering a rain of fire, which fell into the Marin Fando field, igniting countless flames. And the huge beam of light that dissipated the giant lava fist continued to penetrate into the clouds, causing waves and then dissipating. From a distance, it seemed as if the sky had been stabbed by 2 holes by Lauren. Aokiji glanced at the big hole in the sky, bent down, and pressed his left hand made of ice on the ground. Ice Age. Temperature suddenly dropped, and a large amount of ice-blue cold air erupted from the hands of the green pheasants, rapidly spreading to Laurent along the ground, and the cold air all turned into frozen soil, and in the blink of an eye, it came to Laurent's feet. Feeling the cold air blowing towards his face, Lauren bent his legs slightly, jumped into the air, and ducked. However, Lauren, who was in midair and had no flight ability at the moment, was equivalent to a moving target to Kizaru. 8-foot Changgu Jade. His arms outstretched, countless golden light bullets flew out from Kizaru and swept towards Lauren. At the same time, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the green pheasant, and the permafrost that had just been frozen by the ice age swelled and arched, transforming into a huge piece of densely sharp and extremely sharp ice, aiming at Lauren. Light bullets in the sky and ice thorns on the ground. In the eyes of ordinary people, Luo is in a desperate situation of death. Very nice. Looking at the intensive attacks from all directions, Lauren, who was in an emergency descent, said something casually. 3 people of Kayabu saw it, and it was extremely dark. That was frightening. The serious punch appeared again. The black hole energy body with a diameter equal to the size of a wheel swallowed all the laser beams flying towards him under Laurent's swing, and then Laurent threw the black hole energy body down at will. Once off hand, the black hole energy body that was out of control suddenly became violent, chaotic aura madly flowing inside the energy body. After breaking through a critical point, the energy body can no longer bear the sudden explosion, and the strange burst out in an instant. The suction devoured the ice thorns on the ground completely. To be said that although Aokiji, Kyabu, and Akainu have very different personalities and different styles of work, when faced with a common strong enemy, the seamless cooperation of the three of them is extremely good. When one person launches an attack, there must be another person who perfectly connects the offensive, making Laurent dodge almost all the time, without the slightest chance to breathe, let alone counterattack. At this time, the three generals firmly held the battle rhythm in their own hands, so if the three fights and one consumption continue, Rorin will definitely suffer, and Rorin needs to break the current situation. Laurent's eyes, who returned to the ground, continued to circulate among the three, and finally slowly settled on Akainu, and said, "It's better to start with you. Kizaru's speed is too fast, and it is not easy to succeed. The ability of Aokiji's frozen fruit will make people sluggish. Once it is frozen, it is afraid that a pillar of 12 trials will be extinguished. After thinking about it, Akainu is the easiest to succeed." Meteor Volcano felt Laurent's gaze, tensed in his heart, turned his hands into lava and aimed at Laurent. Billowing smoke billowed out, and the giant lava fists like flaming meteors continued to emerge from his hands, leaving no dead ends. Fly straight to Laurent. Like a natural disaster, before the lava meteors fell, the high temperature scorched the earth and made the sea water boil. At this time, Laurent made a strange movement, and he stretched his hands in the shape of claws and raised them above his head, crossing them together. "Feel it well, my new move." Finished speaking, a cold black light erupted from Laurent's hands, exuding a terrifying breath. Compared with unisex boxing, it is rare for men to attack with their claws, and when Laurent was thinking about which male characters to attack with claws, a rebellious figure instantly popped out of Laurent's mind. No longer can't be erased. That is one of the protagonists in The King of Fighters, Yagami-an. Yagami-an's dashing and violent nirvana. The 8 Children is definitely the most unrestrained claw move Laurent has ever seen. No one. Just ask who has played The King of Fighters who has not imagined that he and Yagami used 8 Children to tear their opponents apart, and then left a handsome back. Energy in the body was running wildly, constantly pouring into Laurent's raised hands and legs. The ground cracked open, and an invisible wave of air erupted from the soles of his feet. Laurent's figure disappeared instantly, and he burst in front of Akainu. On the other side, Akainu only felt that his eyes were blurred, and then Laurent came to him, inserted his blade-like claws into his chest, and lifted himself up. The majestic armed color domineering madly poured into the red dog through the 10 fingers of the red dog, shaking the internal organs of the red dog. Immediately afterwards, Laurent's scalpel-like hands began to frantically tear at Akainu's body, and the sharp claws kept cutting, instantly turning Akainu into a bloody man. 1 paw, 2 paws, 3 paws, 7 paws. After the 7 paws, Laurent raised his hands and squeezed Akainu's head tightly. In Akainu's terrified eyes, a terrifying energy poured out from Laurent's palm, and the huge impact force that was enough to collapse the mountains and the ground erupted. Chapter 144 Akainu, dead. The incomparably bright blood flowers bloomed recklessly on Akainu's neck, and it looked very coquettish against the dark red lava. The sudden burst of powerful force directly shattered Akainu's head. Boom! With a muffled sound, the coat embroidered with the word, "Justice," landed first, followed by Akainu's tall headless corpse, which fell back, heavily smashed to the ground. The eyes under the brown sunglasses became extremely vicissitudes of life, and Kizaru's always frivolous tone also brought a bit of solemnity. "Sakazuki, I didn't expect you to be the first person to leave." Aokiji's face is also very complicated, although he was totally at odds with Akainu's philosophy on weekdays, and there were always disputes in his life. he still couldn't accept that he watched a Kainu die in front of him, the fall of one of the most powerful naval forces. The same scene was not bad. Broadcast to all over the world. What a sharp move. The god of destruction is so handsome. Oh ho ho. A Kainu actually died in Ma Linfanduo. Ha 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 ha, it's really heartwarming. Even the 3 generals died on the battlefield. What's wrong with this world? Will it be the era of pirates in the future? Even the navy is no match for these big pirates, so what can we ordinary people do? Several families are happy and some are sad. Regarding the death of a Kainu, audiences with different positions showed completely different attitudes. The only thing is that everyone is the same, that is, everyone understands that with the advent of the top war, the sea is about to change again. Just when everyone was sighing, all the screens in the live broadcast flashed and turned into snowflakes. What's the matter? Why is there no picture again? Damn, are the phone bugs in the Navy reliable? The generals are dead, and the Navy probably cut it off by themselves. Damn it. Are you trying to suffocate Lousy to death? In Marin Vando, a tall and slender figure stood with a knife, and in front of her was a densely packed video phone bug that had been destroyed. Lightly waving the famous sword Jinpyra in his hand, the sharp sword energy from the blade cut the phone bugs to ashes. The beautiful lieutenant general in a navy coat said, "Make sure all the video phone bugs are destroyed." Yes yes, Lieutenant General Tautu. Very well, you go down. Guillaume nodded slightly and moved her gaze to the very center of the battlefield. She was originally a candidate for a general, and she thought that her strength could already touch the strongest group of people in the world, but the man in the field used a bloody "The facts tell me that I am far from the peak." A pair of beautiful eyes stared at the body that looked like a demon in the field, and Yuan murmured, "What do you want the world to look like?" The god of destruction Lauren will naturally not notice Guillaume's gaze. After the killing of Akainu, the situation was reversed, and the one who resisted the pressure had changed from Lauren to Kizaru and Aokiji. Shixiang. Ching Pheasant jumped to the side with all his might, and in the next second, a sharp white beam of light instantly penetrated the position where he was just now, and the powerful impact directly lifted the ground, leaving a smooth and deep ravine. 2 thorn spears. Aokiji, who had just stabilized his body, raised his hands, and the cold air crossed the space and headed straight for Lauren, condensing 6 sharp ice spears in midair, drawing out the sound of wind breaking through the air. Looking back and forth, after calculating the trajectory of each ice gun, Lauren's speed did not decrease but increased, facing the ice gun rushed over, shuttled back and forth in the ice gun at an extremely fast speed, and appeared in front of Aokiji in a blink of an eye. "It's your turn, Kuzan." At this moment, next to Qingzi's ear, Lauren's dull voice fell like a thunderbolt from the blue sky. Looking at the figure that was getting closer and closer, Qingzi's left hand stretched forward, and the whole body turned into crystal ice, almost condensed into a substance. The cold air spewed out, freezing everything in an instant. Ice Age Absolute Zero. Different from the past, the cold temperature this time was so low that everything around it was frozen into ice cubes in an instant, and even the dust floating in the air turned into sparkling freezing points. Under this absolutely cold air that seemed to freeze even time, the first to bear the brunt was Lauren, who was close to the green pheasant. The blue-white crystal ice layer quickly stretched along the fist to the arm, where the ice and snow covered. The chill that penetrated deep into the bone marrow kept stimulating Lauren's nerves, forcing him to stop the pace of progress. However, after stopping, the strong cold air entangled Roran like a maggot in the tarsus, and in just breathing, Roran was frozen into an exquisite ice sculpture. Breathing heavily, Aokiji's face became extremely pale. If it weren't for the moment of life and death, he would never use this trick. The consumption of absolute 0 degrees in the Ice Age is too great. Even if the Aokiji who is in full state uses this move, it will consume more than half of his physical strength, not to mention that his state is extremely bad now. The high consumption in exchange is absolute power. Aokiji is very confident in this move. Even if a Kainu's lava is hit by this move, it will be frozen into ice cubes, not to mention Lauren's human body. Kizaru, who was waiting for an opportunity in midair, naturally would not miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and his hands were aimed at Lauren, who couldn't move in the field. In order to avoid activating Lauren's 12 trials, Kizaru did not attack Lauren's key point. Instead, he chose to use a laser to cut Lauren into a stick. 10 laser beams full of destructive power shot from the tip of Kizaru's fingertips. Chi-Chi flew out and rushed to the joints of Lauren's limbs. Shoo, shoo, shoo. In order to avoid being affected, Aokiji, who retreated to the distance by elementalizing his body, slumped to the ground in relief, looking at Lauren, who had turned into an ice sculpture. Aokiji's lips trembled slightly and muttered to himself. He said, "This time, there shouldn't be any surprises." But at this moment, in a trance, Aokiji seemed to be under the thick layer of ice, and saw a smear of black soul-sucking. Aokiji's heart was lifted again, and he looked at Lauren in disbelief. Could it be? Boom! Before Aokiji could express his conjecture, Kyabu's laser fell on Laurent's body, and the deafening roar ignited a fire that covered the sky, engulfing Laurent. I hope that's my delusion. Looking at the flaming explosion with complicated eyes, Aokiji lay down on the ground without any scruples. Now he urgently needs to recover his strength, because Aokiji is very clear that what he will face next, in addition to victory, may also be fatal. Counterattack. Chapter 145 _ Open black lens bracket Blackbeard and Big Mom close black lens bracket. Under the order of Kizaru, a group of lieutenants slowly approached the center of the smoke after the explosion in a circular shape, searching for Lauren's figure in a carpet pattern. Is he dead? It is impossible to survive an attack of this scale. Be careful, even the generals are not his opponents, stay vigilant. As they advanced step by step, the areas covered by the mist were peeled off layer by layer, but until all the gun smoke cleared, they didn't even find a single hair of Lauren. What's the matter? How did people disappear? Just as the group of Navy captains looked at each other in confusion, one of them suddenly pointed to the side with trembling legs and said in horror, "It's not good. Look over there." Everyone looked in the direction of their fingers, and saw a figure beside the green pheasant lying flat on the ground. I don't know when there was another figure, as if it was the Laurent they had never found. Let you escape. Aokiji raised his eyelids and glanced at Lauren, who was holding a black hole energy body and looked down at him, and said in a flat tone, "Is that weird move that saved your life?" Not bad. Lauren gently tossed the energy body in his hand. Your move is very strong, and you almost succeeded just now. Go ahead. Aokiji closed his eyes in relief, and said in a loss, "The chaotic era of pirates is coming, and I am worthy of the justice behind me to die here." Hearing this, Lauren, who was planning to give Qingzi a pleasure, suddenly stopped his hand, stopped the black hole energy body 1 centimeter in front of Qingzi, and said, "Do you think the Navy is really protecting justice now?" Aokiji smiled self-deprecatingly. "Do you want to say that pirates are the righteous side? The current Navy is nothing but a sword in the hands of the Tianlong people. What you uphold is only the justice of the Tianlong people." Lauren took the black hole energy body back into his hands. "I suddenly don't want to kill you, Kuzan." Aokiji looked at Lauren in disbelief. He didn't think Lauren was a soft-hearted person. He couldn't figure out the reason why Lauren stopped. "As a price, I want you to quit the Navy now. After I overthrow the world government, use your eyes to witness what real justice is." Lauren smiled. The black hole energy body in his hand was constantly twisted and deformed, and finally covered the surface of his hands like a glove. "Of course, if you are still wearing this uniform tomorrow, I don't mind making a special trip to Marlene Fando. Solve you." After speaking, before Aokiji could reply, Lauren kicked him unconscious with a random kick. Lauren looked around and glanced at the captains who were slowly surrounding him. "As for you." Pondering for a moment, Laurent shook his body and stepped on the fist of the king through his legs against his feet. Boom! The terrifying force swayed in all directions, and with a violent tremor, a loud crack resounded under the steps, and the earth under Lauren was overwhelmed and roared, and the dark cracks at the bottom were like cobwebs. Loon's body spread rapidly, and the strong shaking quickly spread to make the weaker captains unable to stabilize their bodies at all, and fell to the ground uncontrollably. Not good. Get out of here, here. Going to collapse. The lieutenants who surrounded Lauren dodged to the side, but the majestic power of the king's fist did not give them much time. Very abruptly, a handful of seawater suddenly overflowed from a gap on the ground that was cracked by Lauren. Although this handful of seawater was no more than the size of a palm, it caused a huge panic in the hearts of everyone. Everyone knows what the seawater in the center of the island means. The entire island of Marinfando was smashed by Lauren. Sure enough, more and more cracks overflowed with seawater, and the surrounding area was covered by a large blue in an instant. They were all stern, and finally, after the innumerable surging seawater gathered together, the huge ocean current lifted up all the surrounding naval captains like a giant whale, and then fell together. The seawater under the island continued to spurt upwards, rushing the captains who fell from the sky into pieces, and finally rolled them to other places. As if what he did just now was just a trivial matter, Lauren clapped his hands, looked up at Kizaru, and said lightly, "It's your turn to fight with me again." It's terrifying. Although his tone was full of joking, Kizaru's eyes were full of solemnity. This is not good news. Facing each other, and a strong fighting intent ignited in Lauren's eyes. The knuckles wrapped by the black hole energy body arched, bent into claws, and crossed them over the top of the head. 8 girls. A thrilling black light lit up from Lauren's hand. The last time it was released, the black light radiated from the high-level armament that covered both hands, but this time it was because of the more terrifying black hole energy body. The figure of Laurent disappeared instantly on the spot, and afterimages were drawn, and they went straight to Kizaru. Akainu's fate was a lesson for him. Facing the attack of the 8 children, Kizaru turned into a streamer and flew into the distance. And Lauren, who burst out to use the 8 young girls with all his strength, actually burst out with a speed no less than that of Kizaru, and chased after him through the lock on the target. Gold and black flashes swept across the sky one after the other, and flew out of Marinfando. Blackbeard, who completed the selection of partners at the Gate of Justice, walked out with the survivors from the 6th floor of the Advanced City, and rushed towards Marinfando on the robbed warship. Putting a hand on his heart, Blackbeard said to himself with frenzied eyes, "Gia Gia Gia Gia, Dad, now you should almost fall down. This era belongs to me, Blackbeard." Just when Blackbeard was immersed in his huge ambition, the warship he was in suddenly stopped abruptly. What's the matter? Why did the boat stop? Marinfando didn't leave us any delay. Blackbeard walked out of the hatch with an unhappy face and asked loudly. A tall and strong man with purple hair and beard came to Blackbeard's side. He was the helmsman of the Blackbeard Pirates, the codenamed champion Chish's Bassos. Bassos pointed to the front of the warship. "Captain, look." Only then did Blackbeard notice that, at some point, a huge ship with a strange shape came to the front of the warship, blocking the route to Marinfando. Wait. This is... With his eyes fixed on the strange circus clown on the bow of the ship opposite, Blackbeard said in shock, "The Queen chanting the horn." Chapter 146 Eating Disorder. Why are you here? Naturally, Blackbeard didn't know the agreement reached between the Navy and the Navy, and he didn't pay much attention to the situation of Marinfando, and he was frightened by the Queen's chanting horn. Is it possible to take a step while Dad and the Navy are exhausted? Looking at the Queen singing the trumpet with a suspicious face, Blackbeard feels more and more that his thoughts are correct. The appearance of the New World Emperor is by no means good news for Blackbeard, because what he wants to do is to go to Marinfando to steal the ability to steal the shocking fruit after the Navy has defeated Whitebeard, who is already at the end of the shot. But the premise of stealing the ability is yes, he must kill Whitebeard himself. Once Whitebeard is cut off by the Navy or the Navy, Blackbeard's plan is nothing but a basket of water. The most important thing is that these people in the infinite hell are not good stubble. How can they be subordinated to others for no reason? Blackbeard released the news that he was going to steal the shock fruit ability to bind these people to his own ship. If Blackbeard can't do it, then don't say pull them on board. I'll be thankful for not being bitten by them. Then join forces. Blackbeard's deep eyes flashed with a sly light. When I get the ability to shake the fruit, the seat of the Emperor of the New World, there will definitely be one that belongs to my Blackbeard. Thinking of this, Blackbeard didn't hesitate, let Bashes stabilize the warship, and Blackbeard boarded the Queen's chant with Lafitte, who he trusted more. As soon as the two Blackbeards boarded the ship, the Charlotte family surrounded Blackbeard in full armor. A mustache and a foot in the shape of a French gentleman, wearing sunglasses, pink all over, eggshell-shaped trousers on his lower body, and holding a cane. He is a fighter of the pirates, Baron Egg. Now seriously injured and in urgent need of returning to Cake Island for treatment, Baron Dandin thought that the Navy was going to go back and kill his mother when he encountered the warship where Blackbeard was. Baron Eggy did not expect that it was Blackbeard who came to the ship. Looking at the evil beginning of the war, Baron Eggy asked with an unhappy expression, "Marshal Titch, what are you doing here?" Ha 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 ha. Blackbeard opened his hands with enthusiasm on his face. "I'm here to discuss a deal that you can make without losing money, please let me meet again. Now is at the moment of life and death, and every second delay is one step closer to death. How can it be possible to discuss cooperation with Blackbeard? Mom won't be interested in your cooperation." Baron Eggy didn't even think about it, and waved the cane in his hand. "You can leave the Queen singing horn. If you cooperate with me, today we can not only get rid of the white beard, but also take a bite out of the Navy." Blackbeard frantically said, "Are you sure you can make the decision for you?" "As I said, Mother is not interested." The Lord slammed the cane in his hand against the deck. "As a Chihuahua, your identity is equal to the Navy. If you don't leave the Queen to speak, you will be the enemy of the entire pirate group." The people of the Charlotte family raised their sharp knives one after another, and surrounded the Blackbeard with fierce faces. "Okay, I am here, I'll go." Blackbeard spread his hands with a smirk, and led Lafitte to the bow step by step, "Walk away." It was at this time that Blackbeard noticed that the clothes of the Charlotte family were mostly messy and dirty. Some people still had wounds on their bodies, and there were also faint traces of blood on the deck. Thinking of Baron Dandin's weird attitude just now, and thinking of the direction the Queen's chanting trumpet was driving just now, Blackbeard couldn't help thinking to himself, the direction they were heading for was not going to Marin Vando just now. Could it be that they have already returned from there? Dandin the Baron didn't give me any chance to see it. Could it be that the ability of the injured soul fruit is also eye-catching? If he is really seriously injured now, crazy and bold ideas came out of Blackbeard's mind, and then he was caught. He pressed it down. After all, his physical condition was just his own imagination, and the risk of tearing his face with Baron Dandin was too great. In contrast, it was safer to go to Marienfando to kill Whitebeard. Blackbeard no longer hesitated, and quickly returned to the bow with Lafitte, ready to jump back to his warship. At this moment, the Queen's chanting horn suddenly shook violently, followed by a terrifyingly sharp howl, wedding cake. I want to eat wedding cake." Hearing a violent roar that was completely different from usual, the people of the Charlotte family showed fearful expressions. "Oops, Mom's eczema strikes again. How can I want to eat a wedding cake this time? We're screwed." Baron Eggy's expression instantly changed. Extremely embarrassed, he commanded in a hurry, "Go to the cabin and send all the snacks you brought this time to your mother, and quickly call Lord Cracker and tell his mother to eat. I am sick, so send someone to make a wedding cake and deliver it." However, before Baron Dandin could finish his words, a dull sound like thunder suddenly sounded from the door behind him, and the sound got closer and closer. "No way." Large drops of cold sweat fell from Baron Dandin's head, and he turned to take a look with difficulty. A terrifying scene caught everyone's eyes. I saw Blurred Eyes walking towards the crowd step by step. Since she lost half of her body, she could clearly see that the various organs in her body kept shaking with her steps. At this time, she seemed to be crawling out of a coffin. The loss is just as horrific. The appearance of Blackbeard confirmed Blackbeard's previous conjecture. Looking at the bruised body with a shocked expression, Blackbeard said in disbelief, "What happened to Marin Fando?" "Cake. Wedding cake." What happened in the episode of Eczema? Extremely tyrannical, the wedding cake that she desperately longed for had not appeared in front of her for a long time. The last trace of rationality in her eyes was completely replaced by ferocity. She suddenly grabbed a family member beside her, and roared viciously. "Do you have any cake on you?" "My lord, I don't. Please let me down." A shrill scream came from her mouth, and she actually threw him into her mouth and chewed it like she was eating. A thick mixture of flesh and blood flowed down from the corner of her mouth. She slowly turned her head and stared at the rest of the people, growling word by word, "Where is the cake? Completely run away." Please download the underlined version of the novel. Chapter 147, Blackbeard's Ambition. Kacha, kacha. The sound of bones being crushed came continuously from the mouth, making everyone present feel extremely horrified. A thick mixture of flesh and blood flowed down from the corners of his mouth, and in the eyes of everyone's terrified eyes, he slowly turned his head and roared word by word, "Where is the cake?" Went completely crazy. At a critical juncture, Baron Eggy didn't dare to be a little slow, and took the lead and took out a large stack of exquisite desserts of different styles from the cabin. Baron Eggy is very clear that she has no discernment ability during the onset of eczema, and even if he approaches, she will eat it without hesitation, so Baron Eggy throws a lot of snacks far away in front of him. For a time, it seemed that there was a rain of desserts on the Queen's chanting trumpet. Looking at the large amount of desserts falling from the sky, there was a hint of joy in the pupils. Countless desserts kept falling into the mouth, but they didn't help. After chewing for a while, the anger in the eyes grew a little bit. "No, this is not a wedding cake." The strange voice came out of the mouth like an invisible storm, crashing into the ears of everyone on the Queen's chanting horn. People who were affected for a while felt like they were in shock. Their souls trembled involuntarily, and even more because they couldn't suppress their inner fears. Their whole souls were taken out and died on the spot. There was only one person who was not affected at all, and that was Blackbeard, who was just about to leave. The frantic eyes fell on the crazy body without any cover-up, and Blackbeard could no longer restrain the ecstasy in his heart, and burst into laughter. "Ha ha 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 ha. Lafitte, go back and call everyone on the boat, plan a little bit. Let's make a change, let's start with it." Lafitte is very aware of Blackbeard's thoughts, and there is also a little expectation in his eyes. Ho 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 ho, is it finally going to appear? It's really exciting. Fett jumped back to the warship. The conversation between the two fell into the ears of Baron Dandin, who was struggling to resist the magic sound, and he said angrily, "Blackbeard, what do you want to do? You actually want to start with your mother? You can stand the pirate group." The anger. Gia 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 Gia. The smile on Blackbeard's face became extremely ferocious. "What can the lost pirates do to me?" A hesitant expression appeared on Baron Eggy's face, but in the end he couldn't spit out a word, because he knew that what Blackbeard said was the truth. At this moment, the figure of Lafitte appeared beside Blackbeard, and what followed was a ruthless character with different body types and ferocious faces. The most conspicuous is the round-faced giant with a height of more than 100 meters, that is the pirate battleship San Juan Hungry Wolf. Under him, 4 people stand side by side. From left to right are a strong woman who looks like a witch, a drunkard with a sausage nose, a man with zongjiao in a fur coat, and a silent tough guy smoking a cigar. They are Katarina Depin, the Hunter of the Moon, Bakat of the Barrel, Abaro Pizarro, the Evil King, and Shiliu of the Rain. Each of them is a notorious murderous figure, the hellish ghost that Blackbeard recruited from the 6th floor of Imper Prison. King of Evil Politics raised a smile. "What a nostalgic world." Meow. The barrel takes the huge jug behind him. Came down, took a sip into his mouth, and said with a flushed face, "Can you kill all these people?" Xuanyu Hunter was overjoyed and replied, He, of course." Of the Charlotte family in front of him without saying a word, took a sharp sip on the cigar, and the eyes under the brim of his hat revealed a trace of excitement. "Can you do it now?" "Of course." Blackbeard waved his hand. "Kill everyone except everyone." As the last word of Blackbeard fell, Shiliu took the lead, and pulled out his right hand, the long knife around his waist. With a flash of light, the people in front of him were cut in half by the waist, and the dead could no longer die. Sniffing the pungent smell of blood, Shiryu muttered to himself, "It's a nostalgic feeling." With the fall of the first corpse, the battle between the Blackbeard pirates and the pirates broke out completely. Turning back and glanced at Lauren who was chasing after him, Kizaru's eyes flickered slightly, as the one with the worst physical fitness among the three generals. Protracted battle is a major shortcoming of Kizaru, and he is avoiding Lauren's pursuit. During the process, the long-term elementalization has aggravated his physical exhaustion, and now he needs to find a place to rest for a while. As the positions of the two of them continued to change, Kizaru, who had the upper hand in speed, suddenly saw a strangely shaped vessel, the Queen's Chorus. Eyes swept over the people on the boat, and Kizaru frowned slightly. He clearly saw the newly appointed Chiwahai Blackbeard and a large number of prisoners in the infinite hell singing the Queen's number. Why are they here? There was an ominous premonition in Kizaru's heart, but at this moment he had no time to worry too much. His body changed, and the streamer where Kizaru was located was like a meteor falling from the sky, and it fell heavily on the Queen's chanting horn. After seeing the face of the person who came, Blackbeard turned pale in shock. Kazuna. Seeing that the ability to plunder is about to begin, Blackbeard never imagined that there would be a naval commander, Marlene Fando, coming here at this time. It seems that you want far more than the position of Chiwahai. Kizaru kicked Blackbeard behind him. Now, let's perform your duty as a Chiwahai a little bit. After kicking Blackbeard, Kizaru quickly flew into the cabin of the Queen's chant. On the other side, before Blackbeard could figure out the situation, he bumped into Lauren, who was chasing after Kyabu. One punch smashed Blackbeard apart, and Lauren landed firmly on the Queen's chanting horn. Kazuna and the god of destruction Lauren. The face of the visitor, Baron Dandon exclaimed in despair. Blackbeard, who stood up from the deck, also had a solemn expression on his face. After the general came another emperor, and the situation on the Queen's chanting was gradually out of his control. Shiryu and the others also looked at Lauren with curiosity, although they had never heard of Lauren's rumors, who had been imprisoned in prison all the year round. Maybe it was definitely not an ordinary person who chased and killed Kyabu all the way. For a time, everyone on the boat focused their attention on Lauren. Facing the fearful or curious eyes of a boatload of people, Lauren helplessly spread out his hands. Then what? You continue. Chapter 148 _ Kill the Yellow Monkey. After speaking, Lauren plunged into the cabin. It all happened so fast, it was as if Lauren and Kizaru had never been in the future. After thoroughly confirming that Lauren Kyabu left Class A, Blackbeard's eyes were full of ferocity, and his own insignificance when he just faced Lauren and Kizaru made him even more eager to gain powerful power. Have to speed up. A layer of flame-like black mist permeated his hands, and his ferocious and cruel eyes flashed past. Blackbeard pressed his hands under him, and the gray-black mist rushed to Class A along Blackbeard's hands, spreading out instantly like a stream of water. Enveloped the people of the Charlotte family. Dark Cave. The black mist generates a strong gravitational force, sucking all the people and things in contact with it, compressing and smashing it. It's an evil power. Katarina's eyes shone brightly. It really makes people like it. Shiryu was also shocked by Blackbeard's ability, such an ability suitable for killing that even he was a little moved. After eliminating all the other people, Blackbeard walked in front of him step by step. Before I eat what I want, my eczema will never end. Feeling the approach of Blackbeard, I open my mouth very hungry and bite it. Dark water. The spiral-shaped black ripples spun out of thin air on Blackbeard's left hand, and Blackbeard directly covered his left hand on his face. Relying on his tough body, he actually used his body to survive the crushing of the dark fruit, but the pain caused by the squeezing made a harsh and strange sound again. Ah 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 ah. However, the cry didn't last long, because soon, Blackbeard inserted the black mist-covered left hand through the wound, directly into her heart. Matter how strong the tough body is, it can't resist the damage from within. The corrugated eyes that had been twisted due to overeating were restored to their original shape, and they looked down at the black beard running through their heart in disbelief. "A person like you," didn't give him a chance to finish his last words, and Blackbeard squeezed his left hand hard, crushing his heart into pieces. "It's now." A large amount of gray-black mist gushed out, wrapping Blackbeard and his corpse, and an indescribable special force poured into Blackbeard's heart from the heart along Blackbeard's left hand. Looking at Blackbeard, who wrapped himself in the darkness, Shiryu let out a smoke ring. "If I fail, I will definitely be the first to quit." The king of evil government is also full of anticipation and waiting. If you fail, just use the Blackbeard's head to replace it with a Shichibukai Dangdang, meow. The success or failure of Blackbeard on the deck is a suspense. In the cabin, Lauren and Ape have already started a fierce battle. "The Charlotte family has disappointed me so much." Raising his hand and shooting a laser to push Lauren back, Kizaru said disappointedly. The murderer who seriously injured her mother was right in front of her eyes, and she came out to take revenge alone. The black hole energy body wrapped in his hand swallowed up all the laser beams, and Lauren raised his hand with the laser beam of the yellow monkey and approached him step by step, sarcastically. "Perhaps you can look forward to it. After returning to Marin Bando, the Navy will the soldiers avenge you." In a blink of an eye, Lauren came to the front of the yellow monkey, with his hands crossed and raised above his head. Black light suddenly appeared, and layers of ripples appeared where the fingertips passed. The dark and deep 10 fingers slightly bowed into claws. It was the 8 children's hands on the face of Lauren's fierce claw attack. Kizaru's whole body instantly counted down, and a strong sense of crisis when facing death emerged from the bottom of his heart. Trying to restrain the instinctive fear of death in his heart, Kizaru opened his hands forward, and the bright golden light burst out from the body. The dazzling light made Kizaru look like the sun shining in the sky, reflecting the whole cabin into a splendid gold and blue. At the same time, Ling Lai's astonishingly sharp wind rose rapidly in the golden glow. "I can't fully control this trick myself, so let's end it with it." The dry, hoarse voice of Kayabu came from the dazzling brilliance. "Just let the horses come." With regard to his own strength, Laurent has absolute confidence, and instead of retreating but advancing, Laurent ruthlessly grabbed at Kizaru. The dazzling golden light in the cabin suddenly became dim and introverted, as much as possible retracted into the golden ape body. This huge force was compressed sharply, and a layer of almost solid liquid golden energy was condensed on the golden ape. The liquid energy circulated wildly on the surface of the yellow ape, and on the surface of the liquid energy, a little inadvertently revealed energy smashed the surrounding objects into annihilation dust. "Amaterasu." With a low voice from Kizaru, the golden liquid that was like an entity madly vented out, and the dazzling golden light suddenly erupted with Kizaru as the center, with an extremely sharp wind breaking through the air, hitting Lauren. Where the golden light came, everything was turned into nothingness, terrifying to the extreme. Just like a flash flood, Laurent's line of sight is full of golden light sweeping the sky and covering the sky, and Laurent, who is only a stone's throw away from Kayabu, can clearly feel the terrifying power contained in the dazzling golden light. The black hole energy body condensed in his hands was even more majestic, and Laurent tore it at the fine beam of bombardment. 8 little girls. Because the hands were covered with black hole energy bodies instead of armed domineering, the golden light was swallowed up in the instant it came into contact with the black claws. 1 claw, 2 claws, 3 claws and 7 claws. After 7 sharp claw strikes, the golden light of the golden monkey is still erupting continuously. Holding his hands together, the soul-sucking black hole energy was continuously compressed and solidified in Roran's hands. After the claws ended, Roran did not connect to the burst of energy, but condensed a serious punch with all his strength. Instant, the energy in Lauren's hands was compressed into a black dot. Roran's eyes flashed, and the energy in his hand flew forward, colliding with the golden light in the sky. The moment it collided with the golden energy, like a drop of ink falling into the water, the black dot suddenly exploded, turning into a giant black hole that greedily devoured the surrounding golden light. It makes the space at the edge of the black hole become extremely distorted, giving people a dream-like illusory feeling. The golden light in the cabin was completely swallowed up by the black hole energy body, but this was not enough. After swallowing up the last trace of golden light, the gravitational force emitted by the black hole energy body slowly turned to the yellow monkey. Even if the yellow ape turns into a beam of light, at this distance, he can't escape the traction of the black hole energy body, not to mention that the yellow ape, who is completely exhausted now, has no ability to resist, his legs are loose, and his body is uncontrollable. Fly towards the black hole. Yu Guang glanced at the sky outside the window, and Huang Yuan muttered to himself, "It's almost time to get off work, so I can rest this time." Kazaru's body was swallowed whole by the black hole energy body. Chapter 149 Second Fruit. The fall of a general occurred silently in the cabin of the Queen's Chant, and outside the cabin, the ceremony of Blackbeard had also been completed. He sucked the last bit of strength into his body, and the expressionless Blackbeard slowly pulled out the hand that inserted into his heart. Looking at Blackbeard, who was the same as before, and the sinful prisoners who escaped from the infinite hell, they whispered. No unusual changes. Neither did Blackbeard. Did you fail? It seems like this, our group can also be disbanded, why didn't we kill Blackbeard now, meow. Wait. Shiliu, the only one in the room who didn't change his mood, said solemnly, I always feel that Blackbeard is not the same as before. Hearing this, the other four looked at Blackbeard again, and indeed as Shiliu said, the current Blackbeard gives a sense of danger and terror compared to before, which makes everyone who sees him feel nervous. The muscles on Blackbeard's face twisted irregularly, and finally pulled out an extremely distorted terrifying smile, tisk ha ha ha. This kind of power is simply wonderful. Ha 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 ha. Blackbeard's emotions broke out completely, his eyes were full of enthusiasm, and he dragged his huge body step by step to Baron Eggy. To be precise, it should now be called Viscount Chick. Under the attack of Blackbeard's dark cave just now, Baron Dandin had already been crushed to death once, but with the ability of the egg fruit, he used a more powerful Chick. The form is reborn. Although he came back to life, the Viscount Chick realized that he would not be able to turn the tide on his own, and when he looked at the Blackbeard who came to him, he turned ashen and said, What have you done to your mother? Gia, you will know soon. Blackbeard smiled grimly, stretched out his hand and grabbed the Chick Viscount's neck. His eyes were full of fierce light, and his fierce face became extremely ferocious, and he roared word by word. Lifetime, or surrender to this way of speaking. Viscount Chick's pupils suddenly opened, his whole body shuddered, and he exclaimed in disbelief, Soul spell. You stole Mother's ability. Before Viscount Chick finished speaking, a cloud of vague mist-like substance slowly floated out of his body, which was the soul of Viscount Chick. The ability of the soul fruit allows Blackbeard to judge the souls of others. After reciting the soul spell, even if the person being tortured by the spell has a trace of fear, his soul will be taken away in the moment of fear. Ha 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 ha, what a wonderful sight. Blackbeard grabbed the mist of soul permeating from Viscount Chick's body and pulled it hard, completely tearing it off from Chick's body. The Chick Viscount who was deprived of his soul's eyes turned strangely white, and he leaned back, and his body became soft in an instant. The degree of soul extraction is calculated according to the lifespan. Today's Chick Viscount has been extracted all of his lifespan by Blackbeard, which is equivalent to a dead person, and due to the loss of his soul, his egg fruit ability cannot be activated, and the Chick Viscount is completely dead. He threw the corpse of Viscount Chick aside like throwing garbage. Blackbeard turned his head, looked at Prometheus and Zeus hiding behind the corpse, and asked, Then you choose to surrender to me, or be? I swallowed it. As Hormies made with their own souls, Zeus and Prometheus are already separate souls, and they did not die together. At this time, their faces showed panic and flew to Blackbeard's side. We choose to surrender. Hey, good. Looking at Prometheus and Zeus hovering beside him, Blackbeard opened his left hand, and an illusory mist flew out from his palm, gradually condensing and condensing, turning into a slowly rotating black sphere. Suddenly, A person's facial features suddenly appeared on the black sphere that looked like a small black hole, and he said, "Father." "Hey hey hey." Blackbeard stroked the hormies, made from his own soul, and said, "From today onwards, I will name you Hades." "Okay, Father." Hades nodded and flew above Blackbeard's head by himself. Hades on the head, body left and right, hovering Prometheus and Zeus, a domineering aura rose from Blackbeard, and now he is extremely powerful. Shiliu lit a new cigar and put it in his mouth, pondering, "It seems that our group can continue to sail. What an amazing terrifying ability this is." S eyes shone brightly, and she smiled grimly. Gia, who has the power of 2 devil fruits, we are the only captain in the world." "It is so." Pizarro also smiled and said, "This will save you killing Blackbeard, meow." Congratulations to the captain to obtain the soul fruit ability. Lafitte took off his top hat and said politely, "What is our next goal?" "Next goal." Blackbeard's eyes flickered slightly, and he waved his big hand to the door of justice behind him. "The war is still waiting for us, now go all out to Marinfando." A puzzled look appeared on Lafitte's face. "Originally, I went to Marinfando to shock the fruit's ability, but now, Captain, you already have the soul fruit. What are we going to do in Marinfando now?" "Hey hey hey." An unfathomable smile appeared on Blackbeard's face, and he said meaningfully, "Did I say that I can only have the ability of 2 devil fruits?" Blackbeard's words fell to everyone's ears like a thunderbolt from the blue. Even Shiliu, who had always been without waves, was startled by the meaning of Blackbeard's words. Could it be? This is impossible. 2 kinds of fruit abilities are unheard of before. How can one person have 3 kinds of fruit abilities? It's a lie. Nothing is impossible. Blackbeard raised his arms and shouted. The jet black flame-like mist and the pale white soul mist emerged from his left and right hands respectively. "Let's wait and see. Our era is coming." The calm and suspicion in the eyes of everyone was instantly replaced by joy. If Blackbeard can really gain a 3rd power from Marinfando, then this era will really be renamed Blackbeard. Just when everyone in the Blackbeard Pirates was eagerly looking forward to Marinfando's trip, the sudden sound of the hatch opening broke their ecstatic atmosphere. Chapter 150 Swelling Blackbeard. Hearing the sound, everyone on the Queen's chant turned back to look at the cabin. One person and countless eyes met. Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Luolun spread his hands helplessly again and said, "It's better to continue when I don't exist." This time, Blackbeard did not choose to ignore Lauren, and walked slowly to Lauren. He stretched out a hand and said, "Roland, God of Destruction, let's cooperate." "Excuse me, may I ask?" Lauren scratched his head, and said with a puzzled face, "Who are you?" The huge Queen's singing horn suddenly became silent, and the muscles on Blackbeard's face were beating uncontrollably. If he hadn't seen Lauren's serious expression, he would have suspected that Lauren was deliberately playing tricks on himself. That sparked this war, the newly appointed Shichibukai, the focus of the sea, Blackbeard, in Lauren's eyes, is like an unknown person. Blackbeard, who has just acquired the soul fruit ability, has not only soared in strength, but also in his own temper. Blackbeard, who has been lurking for 20 years on the Moby Dick, after revealing his ambition, it is difficult to restrain himself as before. Inner emotions. But Blackbeard also knows how irrational it is to have revenge with an emperor at this juncture, not to mention that he is facing the most recognized emperor in the world, the god of destruction, Laurent. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Blackbeard squeezed out a smile again. "My name is Marshall Titch, you can call me Blackbeard." "Blackbeard, I wrote it down." Since Karina's long-term etiquette guidance penetrated into his heart, Lauren politely shook Blackbeard's hanging hand and asked, "We don't seem to know each other before, is there anything we can cooperate with?" "Just now, I killed one of the 4 emperors." Blackbeard pointed to the corpse beside him and said, "And now I'm going to Marinfando to kill Whitebeard, and there is a festival between you and Whitebeard. I hope you can join me to kill Whitebeard. In order to show my sincerity, after leaving Marinfando, we can share with Whitebeard in the New World territory." After speaking, Blackbeard looked at Lauren with a confident face, waiting for his response. The combined territory of Whitebeard and his family is almost half the size of the New World. In Blackbeard's view, Lauren has no reason to refuse such an attractive offer. For Blackbeard, his Blackbeard pirates alone cannot swallow all the territories of Whitebeard and he. There are still 2 emperors in the Iron Navy in the New World. It seems that he can't even get half of it, and it's not bad to be able to get 1/5 of the sum of the 2 territories. If he joins forces with Lauren, this is the same, Blackbeard can completely eat all the territories together with Lauren, and when outsiders come to compete for the chassis, Blackbeard will turn the blame on Lauren. It was someone else. Blackbeard's proposal was indeed very tempting, but the person he wanted to cooperate with was Lauren, which was doomed to fail in Blackbeard's wishful thinking. Lauren rejected Blackbeard without thinking. "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not interested." "Great, let's discuss the details." Completely unexpectedly, Lauren would reject his Blackbeard. His eyes widened and he yelled, "You're not interested." Luo Lunji nodded. "Of course. What's the matter, is it strange?" After thinking for a while, Blackbeard gritted his teeth. "Come with me, I only need 2/5, and the remaining 3/5 will be given to you." Blackbeard didn't believe that anyone in the world would not be tempted by the conditions he put forward, and he believed that Lauren was just taking advantage of the refusal to gain more benefits for himself. Lauren shook his head again without thinking. "I refuse. God of destruction, don't go too far, but I killed it with one hand. Without you, I can also kill Whitebeard." Blackbeard's face suddenly turned gloomy, and he said solemnly, "These territories are equivalent to me giving you away in vain. I will give in one last time. You are 8, I, 2, and 2 in the territory of Whitebeard. This time you are satisfied. Is it difficult to kill?" "I don't think she is very strong," Lauren said inexplicably. "Even if you give me all their territory, I won't promise you. I'm not interested in these, and I'm here to save Ace with Uncle Whitebeard this time, so naturally I won't let you attack Uncle Whitebeard, and if you meet you in Marinfando, don't blame me for being rude." Blackbeard, who did not realize that what Laurent said was true, subconsciously believed that Laurent was mocking himself. If it is not difficult to kill in a row, is there any difficulty in this world? Faced with rejection, Blackbeard couldn't hold back his inner anger completely. He who had just stolen his ability was at his most confident. In short, Blackbeard was very swollen now. Dangerous auras swept out, and Blackbeard said with a gloomy and strange smile, Hey, then let the New World have one less emperor." Seeing that Blackbeard and Lauren were torn apart, Shilyu, Katerina, Lafitte, Pizarro, Choate, and the San Juan Evil Wolf all stood behind Blackbeard, vaguely appearing to be double-teamed. Surrounded by Lauren. Feeling the monstrous malice emanating from the members of the Blackbeard pirates, Lauren's eyes also became sharp. "Very good, it would be great for you to play together, it will also save everyone's time." Gia, you are really shameless, god of destruction." After a sarcastic sentence, Blackbeard took the lead and grabbed Prometheus beside him. Although Blackbeard and the others who had just come out of the advanced city were completely unaware of what Laurent had done in Marin Vando, Prometheus and Zeus had a clear sense of the horror of Laurent's strength. Napoleon's death still vivid in my mind, the two of them would never dare to rashly attack Lauren again. However, without waiting for Prometheus and Zeus to explain to Blackbeard, Blackbeard attacked Lauren. In desperation, Prometheus had to obey Blackbeard, and the air became extremely anxious. A lot of orange flames from Prometheus Methius was squeezed out of his body, spiraling toward Lauren in a spiral shape. Elephant Evening. With a punch, Laurent also noticed the three Hormies beside Blackbeard, and even recognized Zeus and Prometheus with bitter faces, and said with great interest, "The ability has actually come to you, what have you done?" Chapter 141 _ Huge gap. It's better to ask yourself after you go to hell. Blackbeard roared viciously, and held Zeus in his hands again. The fire and lightning radiated radiance for a while, and the Blackbeard set off was like a demon. He waved his hand and threw a thick flaming thunderbolt at Lauren, and Blackbeard's other hand came out with a billowing black mist like a flame. Blackbeard, who had witnessed Roland defeating Whitebeard with his own eyes, knew very well that he could never fight against Roland. He covered his hands full of black mist on the deck, and the black mist spewed out like a tide, quickly spreading towards Roland in the past, facing Lauren, the strongest emperor who holds the title of the world's strongest man and the world's strongest creature at the same time. Blackbeard used one of his most lethal moves, the Dark Cave. The third gear of the king's engine. The muscles of his right arm swelled slightly, and Luo Lun punched out a beam of light that penetrated the heavens and the earth. Shixiang. The pure white beam of light instantly ripped apart the colliding flame thunderbolt like a broken bamboo, and charged towards Blackbeard with unabated momentum. At this time, a huge black shadow was separated between Shixiang and Blackbeard, and he used his body to block the blow for Blackbeard. It was the huge battleship San Juan Evil Wolf. Bang! The muffled sound of the collision between the beam of light and the body came, and I saw that the giant San Juan Evil Wolf was slammed into a huge crater by the replacement position hit by the Shixiang, and then the whole person was bent into a big crater. Shrimp. It hurts. San Juan Evil Wolf's eyes almost bulged out of their sockets. He felt as if his abdomen had been hit head-on by a high-speed warship, all his internal organs were twisted together, and he almost fainted. The San Juan wolves of the giant clan were born with rough skin and thick flesh. On weekdays, the bombardment of naval shells was no different to him. Therefore, when he saw Lauren's attack, he subconsciously blocked it with his body, but he didn't expect it. The power of Lauren's punch is so great that it is even more violent than the giant's. His knees were slightly bent, and the San Juan Evil Wolf knelt on the top of Class A while clutching his stomach, and he was directly incapacitated by the situation of the Shixiang, who had been attacked by Lauren's first strike. Blackbeard glanced at the huge battleship kneeling on the ground, and strengthened his determination not to be approached by Lauren. At the same time as the San Juan wolves were knocked down, the rest of the Blackbeard pirates also killed Lauren. Among the crowd was Shiliu of the Rain, who was the most bloodthirsty. The thunderstorm blade of the famous sword in his hand flashed with cold light. How could Lauren, who was helpless even with the strongest sword of the celestial dragons, get his wish? His hands glowed with a purple-black metallic luster, wrapped in a high-level armament, and punched the thunderstorm with a domineering punch. Ding! The moment the two touched, a crisp sound like the collision of gold and stone suddenly sounded. The huge force that came back from the thunderstorm almost shook the ground, and Shiliu let go of the knife in his hand. If he continued to fight like this, he feared that the thunderstorm would be broken here. He quickly retreated with the knife, and Shiliu secretly said in shock, "Such amazing power is also a human being. Can I have it? When I was imprisoned in the infinite hell, such monsters appeared in the world." Close black lens bracket. As soon as Shiliu retreated, Katerina attacked, also with her hands wrapped in high-level armament and domineering. She quietly sneaked behind Lauren, and took advantage of Lauren and Shiliu's fight against Lauren's back of the head. Punched over. As everyone knows, for Lauren, the strong perception of natural domineering and domineering has allowed Lauren to have a panoramic view of Katerina's every move, and there is no secret at all. But when Lauren was about to turn around to fight back, he suddenly found that his feet could not move, and in desperation, Lauren had to punch Katerina away with a backhand. A dazzling white beam of light suddenly appeared, and it was another twilight image. Katerina, who was hit by the beam of light, flew backwards like a kite with a broken string, and flew directly out of the Queen's chant and fell into the sea. PFF'd. Spitting out a mouthful of seawater, Katerina, who is not yet a devil fruit person, swam with difficulty towards the Queen's chanting horn. With the buffer in the process of flying backwards, the power that Shixiang exerted on her was not as bad as San Juan just now. She was as amazing as a wolf, but even so, she felt like her whole body was falling apart, and the impact just now made her break at least 4 bones. Lauren, who had solved the crisis behind him, lowered his head and saw that at some point, a thick layer of black mist spread from Blackbeard to his feet like a liquid. The culprit of the body. Since it also has a tough body, the crushing ability of the dark fruit could not crush Lauren's body, but the terrifying power that came from it still made Lauren look at Blackbeard with admiration. This ability is somewhat similar to the black hole energy body produced by a serious punch. As he said in his heart, Lauren's legs shook, and the amazing power surged out along his legs, directly shattering the deck within 3 meters of his feet. Countless sawdust exploded and flew, and the dark acupoints that had lost their carriers were like a rootless fire, evacuating and shrinking in the air, and eventually all disappeared. With the disappearance of the dark cave, there is also the confidence in Blackbeard's heart. 20 years of forbearance and hiding has allowed him to obtain the dark fruit, a terrifying and powerful devil fruit. He obtained the soul fruit by mistake, and his strength reached the peak of his life. He planned to kill Whitebeard in Marin Fando, and then plunder the ability of the strongest superhuman type Junjun fruit, and become the strongest emperor in the New World in one step. As a conceited and cunning person, everything is currently under Blackbeard's calculations. Just when he thought he could be born out of nowhere and shock the world, Lauren's appearance completely crushed his who played everything and was applauded. Self-confidence made him understand the gap between himself and the strongest emperor. Blackbeard, who clearly recognized the reality, couldn't help but regret his rash act of tearing his face with Lauren just now. Now he is in a dilemma and is in a dilemma. He stopped Basaro and the others who were about to rush up, and Blackbeard lowered his posture and said, "God of destruction, I promise you, the Blackbeard pirates will not appear in Marin Vando, can you just let us go?" Chapter 152, Sad Blackbeard. To Blackbeard's question, a tyrannical high-level armed arrogance emerged from Lauren's hands, and he showed his position with his actions. Now it's too late to regret. Shooting, the unrivaled majestic momentum climbed from Lauren's body layer by layer, and the edge reached Blackbeard and others. Gollum. Difficulty swallowing a mouthful of saliva, his body trembled involuntarily. The pressure was so great that Blackbeard felt that the Lauren he was facing was beyond the scope of human beings, more like a fierce and cruel ancient sea king staring at him. Lauren even released the domineering look of the Overlord, the psychology of the Blackbeard, and the line of defense was almost on the verge of collapse. Why should I be afraid of him? The most vicious dark fruit and soul fruit are all under my control, I have no reason to be afraid. Under this suffocating oppression, Blackbeard's face became twisted and ferocious. He took the lead. Holding Hades on top of his head with one hand, the soul power in the shape of white mist poured out from Blackbeard's palm, pouring into Hades' body continuously. Well, my father has too much energy and his body is about to explode. Hades' anthropomorphic face showed an expression of extreme pain, and the rear body expanded uncontrollably, and the volume that was originally the size of a fist instantly became the size of a wine barrel. Hoo-hoo. The gray-black mist slowly drifted out from Hades' nose and mouth, and the enlarged Hades' eyes glowed a layer of scarlet, and his voice became extremely hoarse, looking extremely horrifying. Father needs me to eat him. Drop. Go. Blackbeard waved his hands frantically. Crush him into scum for me. Hearing this, Hades pulled out a long black shadow in the air, and hit Laurent like a meteorite. Contrary to the indomitable Hades, Prometheus and Zeus hid behind Blackbeard with joyful faces. They had experienced Lauren's inhuman strength, and they wished Blackbeard would ignore them. The tyrannical suction surged out from Hades' body. Under this powerful force, the Queen's chanting trumpet suddenly burst into a gust of wind, and the deck fragments that had just been smashed by Lauren flew upside down towards Hades, as if falling into the air. They were swallowed up like the stones of the sea. Interesting. That was being pulled by an invisible hand. There was a hint of playfulness in Lauren's eyes. The physical strength, life force and high-level armament domineering in his body moved and roamed on his own, and finally gathered at Lauren's fingertips. Turned into a touch of extreme darkness the size of a football. What is this? Flying at a high speed in the middle. Head wrinkled tightly, and from the black ball that emerged from Lauren's hand, it felt a very familiar but extremely dangerous aura, which made Hades very uncomfortable. Although he is afraid of the black ball, Hardy has no sign of retreating. Newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. Hades, who was just created by Blackbeard, has no concept of danger. Besides, it has absorbed a lot of souls and its strength is several times greater than in the past. The uncomfortable feeling brought by Lauren had made Hades more urgent to destroy the black hole energy body. Instant, a huge black shadow enveloped Laurent, and Hades, who came to Laurent, opened a bloody mouth and bit Laurent viciously. Go to hell. Facing Hades, wild bite like a beast, Lauren did not move at all, just gently sent the black hole energy body in his hand upward, separating himself and Hades. Every time he got closer to the black hole energy body, the uncomfortable feeling became even better. Hades couldn't wait to swallow it and crush it, and the speed of closing his mouth was a little faster. Like eating a chocolate bean, Hades swallowed the entire black hole energy body in one bite. The misty body's black aura skyrocketed, and Hades had a horrifying evil smile on his face. It's your turn. You're up, R.O. Loon. Words could be uttered. Hades' face suddenly changed. Extremely distorted, it looked at its body in disbelief. An indescribable terrifying gravitational force came from its body, as if it had just swallowed a like a beast. Fung was biting wildly from the inside out, and Hades shouted in a voice mixed with horror. What is that? What have you done to me? Looks like your homeschooling isn't very good, Blackbeard. Directly ignoring Hades, Lauren looked at Blackbeard with a half smile and teased. Didn't you tell your son that you can't eat anything from strangers? Blackbeard's face turned blue and white, not because of Lauren's words, but because of Hades. Hades is a Hormes made by Blackbeard with his own soul, which is equivalent to Blackbeard splitting part of his life out of his body, so now when Hades is severely injured, Blackbeard can clearly feel that his life force cannot stop. Of outflow. Hades, originally smooth and round body had dents of different sizes, as if being grabbed by something inside. If it wasn't for Hormes's lack of lacrimal glands, it must have been shedding tears now. A painful cry for mercy came from Hades' mouth. I was wrong. Forgive me, get it out. Turning a deaf ear to Hades' cry, walking around it and walking towards Blackbeard, Lauren said, your own fruit ability is really bad. Come on, let me see what the soul fruit can do in your hands. Play something new, and I hope you can bring me a little fun. You fought with. Blackbeard very keenly extracted the key points from Lauren's words, as if thinking of something. Blackbeard grabbed Zeus and Prometheus hiding behind him, and shouted sharply, tell me. How did the injury come about? Who was startled by the Blackbeard, and Zeus lowered his eyes one after another, not daring to look at him, shivering and replying in a voice as thin as a mosquito. Mom's injury was caused by Lauren and Marinfando just now. One punch. What? Hearing the answer that he didn't want to hear the most, Blackbeard only felt that there was darkness in front of him. Co-author Lauren just didn't lie to himself. For him, he really wanted to kill him. Chapter 153. Father. Close black lens bracket. It's just one of the 4 emperors. Compared with Uncle Whitebeard, your aura is really bad. Lauren, who came to the front of Blackbeard, raised his right foot backwards, and a whip leg went straight to Blackbeard. The gray-black flame-like mist enveloped his body, and the plump black beard was pitifully weak in evasion. Facing Lauren's attack, he could only choose elementalization to avoid damage. Boom! With a muffled sound of flesh colliding, Lauren's legs drew an arc and kicked Blackbeard's chest in the middle. As the most special one of the natural devil fruits, the dark fruit cannot be immune to physical damage like the other natural fruits, and the Blackbeard cannot disperse the body into darkness and reorganize like the 3 generals, but the dark fruit has another ability, elemental. The transformed Blackbeard can absorb the damage it takes, at the cost of double the pain it takes. Although this leg did not use any moves, nor did it wrap up armed domineering, but under Roran's amazing physique, his every move contained a terrifying force that could destroy the world, and such pain, Blackbeard wanted to bear double. It hurts to death. The body is about to explode. The shrill screams like ghosts and wolf howls emerged from Blackbeard's mouth, and Hades's earth-shattering screams came one after another, forming a rather funny scene. Seeing the chaotic and funny scene in front of them, Shiryu and Pizarro slowly stepped back without a trace. The completely reversed situation had already made them understand the situation. If they didn't run away, the San Juan evil wolf lying on the deck and still, Katerina in the sea is their end. The two who had just escaped from the infinite hell and Blackbeard were only using each other, so after realizing that Lauren was incomparable, the two chose to run away. Pity that Laurent did not let the two get their wish. Seeing that Shiliu and Pizarro were about to jump on the warship and escape, Laurent kicked Hades, who was screaming, and pouted in the direction where the two were fleeing. "You, go and bring those two back." Hades, whose life and death depended on Lauren's thoughts, did not dare to resist, and endured the collapse of his body, and aimed his body at Shiliu and Pizarro. The gray-black water wave-shaped energy revolved around Hades' body, and the huge suction force rushed out from Hades' body, pointing directly at the two people on the way to escape. Dark water. As if being pulled by an invisible thread, Shiliu and Pizarro flew away uncontrollably in the direction of Hades. Not bad. Who can easily make the future? Lauren's eyes lit up. Although he has a tough body, he is not afraid of Hades, attracting fans, but how many people have such a physique above the sea? And through a short fight, Lauren faintly felt that Hades' body contained an aura that was very similar to that of the Halu stone gloves in his hand, which indicated that it was likely to have a restraining effect on those with fruit ability, and it was really a must-have for killing people. In fact, Laurent guessed a good point. As a top-level Hormes made by Blackbeard with his own soul combined with the ability of the dark fruit, Hades almost inherited all the abilities of the dark fruit, whether it is absorption. It can be used at will to smash or temporarily deprive the fruit of its ability, but Hades cannot develop the ability of the dark fruit in the same way as Blackbeard. From the moment it was created, Hades' ability limit has been fixed, and unless Blackbeard injects more soul power into it, Hades' power will not increase in any way. Looked, the more delighted he became. Lauren picked up Hades, squeezed its mouth, and put his hand in very simply and rudely to take out the black hole energy body. Hades only felt lightness all over his body, and couldn't help but whisper, "It's comfortable." Hearing this, Laurent grinned, revealing a row of white teeth, which was chillingly white, and brought the black hole energy body in his hand to Hades. Laurent said, "Follow me, or die here, choose one." Lauren's voice resounded in Hades' ears like a whisper of a demon. As Hormes, who is split from Blackbeard's soul, a well-deserved son, Hades did not hesitate in the face of the coercion in Lauren's words, and immediately gave in with a straight face. "I choose allegiance to you." The body became the size of a slap again, and Hades' anthropomorphic face instantly squeezed out a flattering face, very naturally flew to Lauren's shoulder, and said amazingly, "Father." Glancing at the Blackbeard who was still rolling on the deck, Lauren looked at Hades, who had revolted in an instant, with a speechless expression. He really never thought that the whole process would be so easy. Change your name and ask your adoptive father to listen. It's so awkward. Hades nodded frantically like a chicken pecking rice. "Okay, Lord Lauren." It was acquiescence to this title. Roran turned his head to look at the remaining people on the deck. The black hole energy body in his hand suddenly surged, and the terrifying power that distorted the space climbed. The surface of the sphere inadvertently leaked out the energy around the surrounding. A black seam was torn out, causing the people around to feel a shudder. Who is closest to the black hole energy body? Hades, who has the same source of energy, understands the horror of the black hole energy body better than anyone present. Now it is extremely grateful for its surrender to the enemy, and even a little proud. "It's been too long here, it's time to deal with you." Under the desperate eyes of everyone on the Queen's chanting, Lauren threw the black hole energy body at will, and then ignoring the lives of these people, he grabbed Hades, shot out, and went straight to Marin Fando going away, because just now, through the super large-scale perception of natural domineering, Lauren clearly felt that the condition of Whitebeard was very bad. While sighing in the bottom of his heart, Hades, who was caught in the palm of his hand by Lauren, looked back with lingering fear, and saw that above the Queen's chanting horn, the black hole energy body that lost Lauren's control was like a tireless wild beast directly tore and broke the whole ship from the middle. At this moment, the bow and stern of the ship stood high, and were gradually swallowed by the black hole energy body under the majestic gravitational force. And the fate of being swallowed is self-evident. Seeing this, Hades sighed in his heart, "It's better to be a godfather." Chapter 154 Whitebeard's Heart. Marlon Vandu is the same as usual. The seagull flag, which symbolizes the maintenance of world peace and justice, is still erected high in Marlon Vandu, dancing with the wind, but the original white flag is now dyed with a touch of crimson. It has always been considered to be the safest place of justice in the era of the great pirates, but now it can be said that there is a lot of grief. Corpses and stumps can be seen everywhere, artillery fire and screams are endless, and the countless lost lives did not speed up the end of the war, but let the war come to an end. The battle became more brutal. Under the high wall of the Navy headquarters, the figures of Garp, Sengoku and Whitebeard were colliding and bombarding fiercely. The warring states, who turned into an incomparably magnificent dark gold giant Buddha, swung the tigers and tigers with both hands, and the golden light sword, wrapping the high-level armed domineering on the huge fists far exceeding the size of the Whitebeard, and smashing the Whitebeard fiercely. Facing the huge golden fist that was dozens of times larger than his own body size, Whitebeard did not have any intention of flinching. Terrifying fluctuations rippling from his wrists, a translucent mask emerged from his hand, and Whitebeard's eyes tightened. The punch hit the past. Boom, rumble, the sound that was enough to make the eardrums burst roared, and the moment two fists of different sizes came together, the space between the two fists suddenly became distorted, and the surrounding air was due to the venting of the air. The energy quickly turned red visible to the naked eye, and after the surging air wave overturned countless figures, even the island of Marinfando was shaken for a long time. Also trembling, there was Whitebeard's hand that had just punched. After the fierce confrontation just now, the high-level armed arrogance that came from the arm of the warring states period penetrated into Whitebeard's body like a parasite, frantically destroying every flesh and blood in the path. New diseases and old injuries were mixed together. Whitebeard's almost unable to stabilize his body, he fell to the ground on the spot. Holding Kong Yunchi tightly with both hands, trying hard to restrain the involuntary tremor, Whitebeard looked up at Ace, who was close at hand, a trace of unease and panic in his heart. Involuntarily, Whitebeard was never afraid of a powerful opponent, nor was he afraid of it. He was afraid that he, standing in front of Ace, would not be able to save his beloved son. He was afraid that his actions this time would cause heavy casualties to the family of the Whitebeard pirates. Although he didn't want to admit it, Whitebeard was really old, and the strongest man in the world who had overlooked the sea all his life had reached his twilight years and felt powerless. The subtle movements of Whitebeard were still keenly caught in the eyes of the warring states. Even if the position was different, the warring states, who was the opponent, was still touched by the emperor in front of him in his old age who fought for his whole life, and the eyes under the lens showed a hint of sentimentality. Warring states sighed and said, "Whitebeard, people can't resist the years. You are still old after all. Stop it, this war has already cost you and me so much. I don't think you want to see the bloodshed of your beloved sons. As long as you grab it now, I can assure you in the name of my admiral that nothing will ever happen. People are evacuated from Marinfando, and I can also promise you that the Navy will not execute you after arresting you, and you can live in the advancing city." The not-so-loud voice of the warring states period spread throughout the entire Marinfando, and the Navy and pirates in the field stopped their movements one after another. All looked at Whitebeard, waiting for a reply. The war went on for too long. Both the Navy and the pirates have already made heavy sacrifices, so it seems that Sengoku's proposal is, to a certain extent, a perfect solution for both parties. Whitebeard, who was staring at him, didn't immediately reply to Sengoku's question, but just stood straight and motionless with his naginata in his hand. Due to his tall figure, the sunlight was blocked by it, casting a shadow on Whitebeard's face, making it impossible for everyone to guess what Whitebeard was doing at this time. Finally, Whitebeard moved. Everyone looked at Whitebeard with complicated expressions. Whether the war ended or continued, it was up to Whitebeard's next choice. At this time, Whitebeard, who was in the spotlight, made an unexpected move. The dazzling white light of the center of the sun rippled on Kong Yunqi's cold blade, and the thick and muscular arms raised Kong Yunqi high, slashed suddenly, and drew a fierce sword energy. That the direction of Whitebeard's slash is the shock-proof wall behind him. The shock force compressed to the extreme is now showing amazing destructive power. Like countless tiny saw blades cutting back and forth on the surface of the shockproof wall. Although the shockproof wall made of special materials dispersed and moderated most of the shock waves at the beginning, the Whitebeard's knife was too powerful. The anti-vibration wall was directly split in half, adding a large gap to the tight-fitting enclosure. In order to pursue freedom, I became a pirate, and as a pirate, it is up to me to decide what to do next. It's not just Ace, you are all my family, and I have always loved each of you deeply. I promise in the name of Whitebeard that even if you all leave Marin Vando now, the Whitebeard pirates will not pursue anyone after the fact. Whitebeard's vicissitudes and heroic voice spread throughout Marlene Fando. Whitebeard pointed Kong Yunqi to Ace kneeling on the execution platform, and shouted excitedly, "How can I watch my son die in front of my eyes? My son's life is my own, and I can't do it. Now, all those who are not afraid of death, rush with me." After speaking, Whitebeard jumped up first, raised Kong Yunqi in his hand, and with the help of his whereabouts, he attacked the warring states with a mighty thunderous momentum, and Garp and the two slashed over. "Dad. Daddy." Whitebeard's words and actions seemed to be an introduction, instantly igniting the raging fire in the hearts of thousands of pirates, and for a while the morale of the pirates soared, directly counter-pressing the navy. Knowing it would turn out like this, failed to persuade him to surrender, frowned tightly, and the huge body that was already a colossus surged again. The dark golden Buddha light shone in the sky, and the warring states pushed straight towards Kong Yunqi with a palm. "In this case, you and your stay with the sons at Marin Vando." Whitebeard. Sigh, although he couldn't bear it, Garp still killed Whitebeard, and what drove him to fight has always been the justice in his heart. Chapter 155 _ Situation Reversal. Before anyone arrives, move ahead. Whitebeard, warring states, and Garp collided with each other. The three vast and majestic auras began to fight fiercely. The invisible sense of oppression surged out from the body of the three people, which was the domineering of the three people. The arrogant and incomparable overlord color collided, and the howling wind rolled up out of thin air, and the pitch-black thunder and lightning ravaged the earth. Above the dome, the clouds seemed to be torn apart, split into two, and finally turned into raindrops all over the sky. Before the peak duel between the Pirate Emperor and the old-fashioned Navy twins started, it triggered an apocalyptic vision of heaven and earth. Countless eyes looked at the three people in the center of Marlene Fando, and everyone knew in their hearts that the ultimate battle that would determine the outcome of the war was about to break out. Execution platform. Ace, whose eyes were split open, wanted to commit suicide to end the war. He was imprisoned and could do nothing about what happened. Even now, his most beloved father is entangled in a life and death struggle. "Daddy." 2 lines of hot tears poured out of Ace's eyes, and he slammed his head to the ground. "Please. Take everyone away. Let me die here." Just as Ace shouted loudly, the three of Whitebeard, Sengoku, and Garp collided. Boom! The loud voice resounded in the sky. Whitebeard fought 1 against 2, using Kong Yunqi to hold back the fists of the warring states Garp and the two, and glanced at Ace from the corner of his eye. Whitebeard murmured, both moved and angry. Said, "What a stupid son. I think it's not just the son who is stupid." A roar of Sengoku broke the short stalemate, and the Buddha's light flickered on his other hand. Hey! A bang! An incomparably wide Buddha's light blast burst out from his palm and flew towards Whitebeard quickly. Whitebeard's eyes tightened, and a terrifying vibrational force burst out from within the body instantly, like a layer of invisible armor, shaking away all the Buddha's light close to him, blocking this wave of offensive. This round of confrontation, Whitebeard and warring states were evenly matched, but it was not only warring states who fought against Whitebeard. Only the remaining right fist burst out with incomparably bright brilliance, and the burst of air waves ravaged the earth. Garp, who is full of white hair and silver beard, perfectly interprets what it means to be a tiger and an old man. Carp's fist was also destroyed by Lauren, but no one dared to underestimate this old naval hero. His eyes looked directly into Whitebeard's eyes, his unparalleled ferocity abruptly rose, and the next moment, Captain jumped up and punched Whitebeard with a punch. A transparent spherical mask appeared in his hand, gritted his teeth secretly, and slammed upwards with an equally ferocious punch. Wow! The two fists collided, and the swirling airflow that erupted revolved around the two bodies, forming a huge and terrifying hurricane vortex. The terrifying wind pressure involved everything around and surging in the eyes of the wind. All the sea water surged into the air, swarming towards the hurricane wrapped around Whitebeard Carp. Looking at the natural disaster-like scene in front of him, Sengoku, who had just been bounced aside by the wind and waves, was also secretly shocked. It's amazing, Whitebeard. Bang, 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 bang. Dull sound of physical collisions was constantly heard from the eye of the wind, which showed that Whitebeard and Carp were confronting again and again inside the hurricane, which was invisible to everyone. Finally, after a certain collision between the two, the Optimus pillar that reached the sky could no longer bear the vast power of the two, and burst open very roughly, and the astonishing air waves scattered into Ma Linfando. In the nearby waters, there were bursts of shocking waves. At this moment, the surging waves are comparable to a tsunami, but the people in Marin Vando seem to be unaware, and all focus their attention on the two people who are showing their bodies from the hurricane. The bright red blood slowly slipped from the corner of his mouth, and the Whitebeard raised his hand to wipe the blood, and looked at the two in front of him with a solemn expression. Everyone was in an uproar. From the beginning of the war to the present, this unmatched man was finally injured. Marco, who was entangled by the pig, Peach and Rabbit, twitched unnaturally at the corners of his mouth. He sighed softly, Dad. After fighting all his life, the physical condition of the Whitebeard full of dark diseases is worrying, and now he is still 1-2, this old male lion may really collapse here today. Good chance. Contrary to Marco's sad face, Sengoku's eyes shot a gleam of light, and his figure skyrocketed again. Don't give him a chance to breathe. Situation gradually became clear. Lauren has not yet returned, and Whitebeard is in crisis. Just as everyone sighed inwardly, a small black dot gradually came into view, and then it expanded sharply in countless sights. That black shadow was like a black streamer, and it broke into Marin Vando from the horizon in an instant. When they got close, everyone realized that what black light was in the black trail, it was clearly countless overlapping together. The afterimage. A hearty laughter resounded from the sky above Ma Linfando, causing waves in everyone's hearts. Uncle, your situation is a little bad. Hearing the sound, the eyes of the pirates and others filled with ecstasy, because everyone understood what the appearance of this voice meant. The real strongest man in the world, the worst god of destruction in history, is back. Sure enough, when they looked at the center of the battlefield again, in the way of the warring states attacking Whitebeard, a slender figure stood proudly, blocking the incomparably huge golden Buddha with one hand, preventing it from advancing half a step. Looking at the figure standing in front of him, who was not considered a stalwart, Whitebeard only felt a burst of relief in his heart. He let out a long sigh, and scolded with a smile, Do you dare to come back a little slower? His waist twitched his arms, and with a flick of his wrist, Roran's incomparable strength suddenly erupted in a square inch. Boom! There was a muffled sound like the expansion of a golden stone, and a deep concave fist mark appeared on the body of the Warring States incarnation of the Golden Buddha. The body flew backwards uncontrollably, and 200 meters long were drawn on the ground. The deep ravine just stopped the figure. A punch. Lauren turned his head and responded to Whitebeard with a smile. I also encountered a lot of incredible things just now, and I'll tell you in detail when the solution is over. Although his mouth was full of complaints, there was still a smile in Whitebeard's eyes that he couldn't hide. Boy, when you return to the Moby Dick, you have to pay me 3 bowls of wine. Okay, get rid of them, I'll accompany you to drink enough. Fei Lu reminds you, collect 3 things about reading. Chapter 156, Iron Fist. Facing the provocation of Lauren and Whitebeard, Carp and Sengoku did not show anger. because the two of them noticed a problem at the same time. That is, after Lauren returned to Marlene Fando, he left with him just now. The yellow monkey did not appear for a long time. What this means is very clear to the two carp. Akainu was just killed by Lauren on the spot, Aokiji was defeated and left Marlene Fando without knowing where to go, Kyabu is now missing, and his life and death are unknown. Thinking of this, Tomo Sengoku, who has always been known for his composure and calmness, has also become heavier. On the two of Lauren and Whitebeard, and Sengoku let out a subtle word from his teeth that only Garp could hear. Go ahead, Corisalino is likely to have died in the line of duty, we can't let this news spread out, or the soldiers will collapse. Years of coordinated operations have made the two of them have the same mind. After clarifying the reason, Garp rushed to Lauren without hesitation, and actually launched the attack first. At least answer me. Seeing Garp rushing ahead, Sengoku shook his head helplessly, raised his palm likewise, and pressed the mighty golden palm to Whitebeard. War is imminent. Facing the huge golden palm like the Five Fingers Mountain in the Warring States period, Whitebeard waved his hands, and the turbulence on it made invisible fluctuations, and the terrifying vibration force suddenly filled out, filling every corner of Whitebeard's body. Get out of my way. That with a roar, Whitebeard's sturdy arm was like a machine gun with full fire, and it punched the Warring States. The golden palm vented freely. The strong boom is endless, the invisible ripples spread wildly, like the thunder of the sky, the Whitebeard and the Warring States period are in full swing. The two of them are fighting hotly, and Lauren and Garp are also on the same page. Leaning to avoid Garp's majestic punch, Lauren took advantage of the situation and grabbed Garp's arm from the side. Lauren folded his arms and said seriously, "You are not my opponent without a hand, let's go, uncle." As for the enemy, Lauren's behavior is very simple. As long as he is malicious to the person who shot him, Lauren will solve him without hesitation, but for the current Garp, from his heart, Lauren does not feel any malice in his heart. Garp didn't shoot because he wanted to kill Lauren, and even from the bottom of his heart, he hoped that the pirates could rescue Ace, but Garp's justice made him unable to let go of his role. The responsibility of the Navy has to be taken. Lauren understands this, so he wants to give Garp one. He said undoubtedly became a sarcasm in Kapoor's ears. It was just the old man's carelessness before. The eyes became extremely sharp. Garp raised his head and looked directly at Lauren, and the high-level armed aura with a cold luster continued to pour out of his body, arming Garp from the hair to the toenails. Don't underestimate it. Old man, the battle has just started with a low shout, it is pitch black and thick. Use high-level armed arrogance all converged into the body, and what followed was Garp's more powerful and majestic aura. Although he looks no different from before, he feels completely different. A suffocating and powerful sense of oppression came upon him, and at this moment Garp finally showed his true strength at the level of an uncrowned general. Noticing Garp's change, Lauren also became serious. Others didn't understand what happened to Garp, but Lauren knew very well that, just like returning his life to the god of destruction, Garp integrated high-level armament and domineering into his body. In cells. You are very strong, uncle. The dark and rich high-level armed arrogance also gushed out from the surface of Laurent's body, and then converged into the body. Laurent's eyes lit up with fighting intent. Come. Ha, ha. The sound of tearing the sound barrier sounded from their original positions at almost the same time, and when they looked again, Lauren and Garp had already collided. Boom, boom, boom. The dull sound of physical collisions rose and fell one after another. At this time, Lauren and Garp were like two human weapons with full firepower, tirelessly venting their firepower towards each other. Lauren Cap used his body to the fullest, fists, arms, elbows, feet, legs, and knees. At this moment, every joint on the two of them became weapons full of destructive power, attacking each other without leaving any dead ends. In the midst of such a fierce battle, every cell in Lauren's body exuded an air of joy. Born to be warlike, he felt the joy of battle after a long absence, and couldn't help shouting loudly, happy. In contrast, Garp's mood became heavier and heavier. Although he and Lauren were evenly matched at present, as time passed, Garp could clearly feel that the strength of Lauren's fists was increasing. And the high-level armament color domineering into the body consumes a lot of physical strength for Garp. He can't last for a long time in this form. Garp secretly said in his heart, it can't be so deadlocked. The thick power gathered in the right hand, and Garp's eyes flowed with sensuality, and the incomparably cold killing intent overflowed wildly. The soles of his feet swayed, the figure swept out violently, and he threw a domineering punch at Lauren. The Iron Fist of Death. The name of Garp Iron Fist is not groundless. Len's eyebrows. The powerful fist shadow of the strong wind expanded sharply in Lauren's pupils, but Lauren did not mean to dodge. The third gear of the king's engine. Muscles on the arms bulged high, the blue veins skyrocketed, the fighting spirit in Lauren's eyes soared, his feet firmly planted into the ground, his waist turned slightly to drive his arms, and the whole body's strength was naturally transferred into the fist, which also contained terrifying strength. A punch slammed into Garp's iron fist. The king's fist. Without the madness and sharpness of the 8 young girls, and without the terrifying and treacherous punch of a serious punch, Lauren's punch was extremely simple, without any fancy, only the vast and surging force, the tyrannical force almost condensed into a solid, tearing the surrounding area. The air, and even the surrounding earth, were blown into stone powder by the overflowing force, flying all over the sky. Chapter 157 Endeavoring Masked Man. The fierce and powerful terrifying wind roared, and Garp couldn't help showing a look of shock in his eyes, but from the moment he just punched, Garp did not leave himself a retreat. 2 earth-shattering terrifying fist shadows suddenly collided with countless terrified eyes. Boom! The thunder-like collision sound suddenly exploded, and the terrifying impact of the 2 fists collided along the arms of the 2 to the legs, and finally spread to the ground. The dark and narrow cracks suddenly spread from the feet of the 2, and instantly it cracked into a huge cobweb, and at the same time, the surging air waves burst suddenly, spread out in a ring, penetrated into the sea around Malinfando, blasted monstrous waves, and finally turned into fine water droplets all over the sky. Fall. Slowly withdrawing his arms, Lauren stepped forward, rubbing Garp's shoulder without a word and walking over. And Garp seemed to have been petrified, keeping his punches motionless, and Lauren walked behind him. The strange scene in front of them made a large number of Navy soldiers stunned and exclaimed in amazement. What's the matter? Why didn't Lieutenant General Garp stop him? I don't know, maybe Lieutenant General Garp is afraid. What nonsense are you talking about? That's an iron fist. The Lieutenant General never flinched when he defeated the Rocks pirates. How could he be afraid to take action? But Lieutenant General is facing the god of destruction. Just when a group of Navy soldiers had different opinions, Garp, who had been in a stalemate for a long time, suddenly shook. I saw Garp's face flushed with an abnormal flush, followed by, poof. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The raised arm drooped down weakly, slumped to the side, and Garp leaned back straight and lay on the ground. After he lost his left fist, the so-called iron fist also completely broke his right arm. Looking straight up at the sky above Malinfando, Garp slowly closed his eyes. He knew very well that if it wasn't for Lauren's last effort, the one lying on the ground would be his corpse. Now, the end of the Navy is doomed to fail. In desperation, Garp felt a hint of relief in his heart. The Iron Fist fighting for justice can no longer fight, and now only Garp, the grandfather, is silently praying in his heart. Open black lens bracket. Be sure to survive. Ace, Luffy close black lens bracket. Lieutenant General Garp is down. Go and save the Lieutenant General. Amid the anxious cries of the Navy, Garp lost consciousness and passed out. The dragon, who was in a stalemate with the masked man, glanced at Lauren's side, and felt relieved after Garp's still vigorous aura of life with a domineering look. And Luffy has also been taken advantage of by Ivankov and Jipping, and after some treatment, he is out of danger, and is being surrounded by a group of escaped prisoners in the center to move to the edge of Marinfando. His father and son are no longer in serious trouble, and now the dragon has no worries. His hands are bowed into claws, and the temperament of the dragon's whole person has become fierce and completely different from the previous one. The dragon in the past only brought an unpredictable sense of mystery to others, but now the dragon is like a sharp sword unsheathed, and the whole body is filled with murderous intent, making everyone who sees him unconscious. Throat tightened. The most sympathy was undoubtedly the masked man with the strongest shield of the Tianlong people who was facing the dragon. The face under the mask twitched slightly. The masked man felt as if he was really being stared at by a vicious dragon. Tight. Very abrupt. A gust of wind gushes out of nowhere, sweeping across the entire Marin Fando in an instant. The dark green robe on the dragon's body flutters in the wind, revealing the sinister tattoos on his face. Rumbling. The thunder sounded, and as the wind continued to surge, the dark clouds piled up layer by layer, blasting out pieces of thunder, and the dazzling thunder light flashed from time to time, reflecting the dragon's cheeks like a ghost. Roar. Sky. The dragon struggled to open his arms, and every part of his body bulged and deformed, causing the dragon's body to expand and extend, and finally turned into a terrifying beast with a ferocious appearance. Rugged and sharp horns, short and sturdy neck, gleaming green scales, strong and powerful claws, strong and slender body and huge wings enough to cover the sky, the dragon has really become a giant dragon. The image of the Eastern dragon transformed by Kaido is different, and the image of the dragon transformed into a very standard Western dragon. The dragon's chest continued to rise and fall, his fiery breath gushed out, his mouth opened slightly, revealing a sharp tooth. It's time to pay the price, Tianlongren. After speaking, the huge dragon claws were raised high, and the tips of all claws were like spears. Thick thunder was wrapped around them, and they grabbed the masked man with an unrivaled aura. The face under the mask twitched unnaturally. The masked man propped up his hands in front of him and released a huge repulsive mask. Facing the dragon, he did not dare to despise him, and as soon as he came up, he launched the strongest repulsive force. After the first battle in Chambord a year ago, the masked man who realized that he was not strong enough had deeply developed his own abilities, and now his use of the repulsion fruit has reached a new level. The majestic and vast repulsive force was sharply compressed, and the blurred mask in front of the masked man almost turned into a solid body. With the full force of the repulsion fruit, the air next to the mask was pushed out, creating a vacuum area, making mask edges become distorted and blurred. Bang! The two collided, and the dazzling thunder was directly repelled and flew into the surrounding ground, while the sharp dragon claws fell into the thick and solid mask. Violent force on his hand, the dragon wanted to penetrate the entire claw, but every time the claw tip pierced, the repulsive force from it also increased by 1 point. After a stalemate for a while, the dragon found that he was completely unable to break through. Repulsion cover. To make matters worse, since most of the dragon's claws have been submerged into the mask, the huge repulsive force from all directions inside the mask is squeezing the front part of the dragon's claws fiercely, clamping the dragon like a beast trap. In the mask. You don't know anything about the power of the Tianlong people. The calm voice of the masked man slowly sounded from his ears, and Long turned his head sharply, and what caught his eye was a sharply expanding repulsion wave. Oops, careless. The dragon, who couldn't escape and dodge, only had time to wrap himself with a layer of domineering armament, and then a strong and arrogant force rushed from his chest, and the dragon was smashed by the masked man's repulsive shock wave. The figure flew upside down like a derailed train, and after 2 deep ravines with a length of 100 meters were drawn on the ground, the dragon just stopped his figure. A muffled sound in the throat, and a trace of blood dripped from the corner of the dragon's mouth. He looked at the masked man with a solemn expression. The dragon who had dealt with the masked man many times suffered a big loss because he misestimated the strength of the masked man. At this moment, a slightly playful voice came from behind the two of them. Uncle, you are a little embarrassed now. Chapter 158 _ Dismount the horse. Was a slight embarrassment on Long's expressionless face, but fortunately, he is now in the shape of a dragon, and no one can read his emotions from his face. The huge dragon head slowly turned back, A pair of vertical pupils stared at the visitor. The dragon used his facial features to squeeze out a self-kind expression. Thank you for your kindness just now. In order to express my gratitude, from now on, the Revolutionary Army will always be your loyal ally. The person who came was naturally Lauren, who had just escaped and came here, and what the dragon thanked was Lauren's last punch when he just fought with Garp. As the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Long has been in a high position all the year round and has been accustomed to considering issues from the perspective of interests. As the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Long has been in a high position all the year round and has been accustomed to considering issues from the perspective of interests. Therefore, while expressing his gratitude, Long also expressed his gratitude. Playing a careful trick, what he revealed in his seemingly casual words seemed to mean that Lauren had reached an alliance with the Revolutionary Army. Lauren also noticed the private goods in the dragon's words. Frowning slightly in disgust, Lauren walked past Long and said coldly, I don't want to have anything to do with the Revolutionary Army you mentioned. Besides, I hate others talking to me around the corner. It's better not to have a next time. Finished speaking, Lauren raised his hand and threw a fist forward, and then hurried to the original battlefield without looking back. Of light with a diameter of one person's height. Although the target of the attack was not the dragon, the strong wind overflowing from Shixiang still hit his nostrils. A strong soreness came from the tip of his nose. Long was stunned for a moment, and then flicked his tail awkwardly. He realized that what he had just done was wrong, and this was undoubtedly a disgrace to him by Roran. After flying past the dragon, Shixiang rushed to the masked man who had no sense of existence. This was the real goal of Roran, who came here. In the only remaining top fighting force of the Navy, Garp had already been defeated. In order to speed up the end of the war to avoid unnecessary sacrifices, Lauren came here from the battlefield on Whitebeard's side to promote the process of the war. In fact, from the moment Lauren appeared, the masked man quietly slipped aside. If there was only Dragon alone, the masked man could still fight with confidence, but facing Lauren, he would not have the slightest war in his heart. Meaning, the growth rate of Laurent is really amazing. After the last fight with the masked man, in just 2 years, Laurent's strength has reached the level that the masked man cannot match. It is no exaggeration to say that it is a world of difference. The masked man is also very clear, especially that weird black energy. He still has lingering fears when he thinks of it, and he is glad that he was not as terrifying as he is now when he met Lauren. It is precisely because he understands the gap between himself and Lauren, that in Luo's moment, the masked man is like an ostrich, sulking aside, praying madly in his heart that Lauren can't see himself. To be said that the masked man still succeeded. At least he now understands a little. Although the purpose is to overthrow the world government, Lauren and Long have not reached a cooperation, and even some conflicts have arisen just now. Just as the masked man was secretly delighted, an extremely strong wind suddenly hit his face, making him almost unable to open his eyes. The masked man hurriedly raised his head, only to see the incomparably fierce silver-white beam of light like a magnificent pure white dragon, constantly expanding in his eyeballs, and he was about to collide with himself. Crap! Masked man quickly opened his hands, holding up a thick and solid repulsion barrier, blocking him in front of him. Dang! The empty sound like ringing a bell rippling out. The masked man's ascetic practice is still fruitful. After the collision between Shixiang and the repulsive force, they fell into a stalemate, and the magnificent energy contained in the beam of light poured out without reservation. On top of the repulsion shield, the masked man who looked at it was trembling with fear. This situation didn't last long. Under the continuous impact of Shixiang, suddenly, an inaudible cracking sound hit the masked man's ear like a heavy hammer. His pupils shrank suddenly, and the masked man's hands trembled uncontrollably, trying his best to reinforce the repulsion shield in front of him layer by layer. Although the repulsion shield was almost solidified by the masked man's continuous reinforcement, the cracks that Shixiang bombarded continued to spread and widen in the frightened eyes of the masked man. Soon fine cracks filled every part of the repulsion shield. Click. A crisp sound, like a flood bursting a bank. Shixiang tore apart the layers of repulsion, and bombarded the masked man like a broken bamboo. Before he could even let out a scream, the figure of the masked man, like a train that had derailed, flew out in an instant, creating a deep ravine on the ground, and it was only 100 meters away that the smoke and dust in the sky stopped. The gigantic dragon body changed into a human form again, and he looked at the masked man who was half in the earth, and the dragon swallowed hard. He had personally experienced how strong the masked man's repulsion was, and he felt that it was difficult. The repulsion shield was like a piece of paper under Lauren's hands, and it shattered like this at random. The shock in his heart could not calm down for a long time, and Lauren's danger level rose by another level in Long's heart. The world government is actually provoking such a person. Putting back the hood he took off, the dragon silently walked to the edge of Marin Fando and left the battlefield. The Tianlong people are really finished this time. At the same time that Long left Marin Fando, Lauren also returned to the battlefield of Whitebeard and the Warring States period. A fist collided with Whitebeard, and Warring States took advantage of the situation to get away and retreated to the side, looking solemnly at Lauren, who came to Whitebeard, and said solemnly, "What did you do to Garp?" "Don't worry, I didn't kill that uncle." Lauren shook his head, and immediately said with a serious face, "The pirates and the navy have already paid the price. It's time to end this war, hand over Ace, and let's leave Marine Fando." Whitebeard will insert from Yunchi aside, quietly waiting for the reply from the Warring States period, which can be regarded as acquiescence to Lauren's statement. Whitebeard does not want to see the sacrifice of his sons. Not so good. The gigantic Buddha body gradually shrank, and the eyes of the Warring States period, which had been removed from the shape of the great Buddha, became incomparable vicissitudes, and the hair and beard became snow white. It has only been a few hours since the beginning of the war. But as if decades have passed in an instant, it is full of old age. Chapter 159 – The End of the War. Sengoku's gaze swept past Lauren's white-bearded son and looked around. After a fierce battle, Marlene Vando no longer had the tranquility and peace of the sunset. The smoke of gunfire was everywhere, and countless fragments of ruins were formed. As far as the eyes could see, there were corpses and wounded, and the white seagulls stood high in the naval headquarters. The flag was stained with blood. "He's right, the price the Navy has paid this time is too heavy." The hands under the long sleeves of the navy coat were tightly clasped, and the Warring States period looked at the tragic scene in front of him in a tangled state. He had to say that he was moved by Lauren's proposal. The strongest swords of the celestial dragons, Akainu and Kizaru, have already died in the line of duty. The whereabouts of Aokiji are unknown. The life and death of the most powerful shield of celestial dragons is unknown, and Garp is seriously injured and unconscious, not to mention the countless casualties of naval generals and captains. After a war, the Navy's top combat power is almost wiped out, and the backbone is also heavy casualties. If the war continues, the Navy will surely usher in defeat. Warring States looked at him with vicissitudes of eyes, and it was Lauren who was standing in front of him who made the Navy go from a secure victory to a precarious situation. Sengoku's lips trembled slightly. As a naval marshal, he told himself in his heart that he should agree to Lauren's proposal, but as a Navy, Sengoku could never spit out, "I agree." 3 words. The justice in his heart prevents him from surrendering to the pirates. Even though his positions were different, Laurent could see through the entanglement of the Warring States at a glance. In normal times, Laurent might have favored people who were loyal to their beliefs, but now there is still no time for the Warring States to hesitate. "In that case, let me help you make up your mind." Lauren helplessly sighed, and took out a black sphere the size of a palm from his jacket pocket. This black ball was just Hades, who was snatched by Lauren. After leaving Blackbeard, Hades was kept in his pocket by Lauren. Without Lauren's instructions, Hades did not dare to act rashly. He stayed in his pocket all the time. However, although he couldn't see what was happening outside, Hades still sensed the wave of energy fluctuations that made him frightened through his clothes, which made Hades, understanding of Lauren's strength to a higher level, and he was firm again. It follows Lauren's heart. His eyes were stunned by the sudden sunlight, and Hades quickly adjusted his state and bowed his head to Lauren respectfully. "Lord ye Lauren. What do you need me to do?" Almost everyone present was taken aback by the black ball that suddenly appeared with self-awareness, and looked at Hades uneasy. Although they did not know what Hades was, their fear of Lauren made them dare despise everything that has to do with Lauren. Only Whitebeard narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he saw something, and asked Lauren in a low voice, "Is this Hormes?" "Homets, what's that Hades?" I snatched it from a freak named Blackbeard. After responding to Whitebeard's question, Lauren's seemingly random D's threw it into the air. "Use the trick that Blackbeard devoured in a large area before. Don't cause casualties, just scare and scare." Hearing Lauren's words, Haddiston's mind became clear, and its body began to expand continuously when it flew into the air, and the jet-black flame-like mist poured onto the ground like a downpour, and instantly formed a vast black mist ocean current, vast and vast. The gravitational pull from the dark ground lifts everything on the ground. Swallow it into the black mist and grind it into powder. It seems to be the dark acupuncture point used by Blackbeard before. What the hell is this? I don't know. Run. It's coming. The rapidly spreading black mist put a great deal of psychological pressure on the Navy soldiers. Although they didn't know what the consequences of being sucked in were, they did not dare to gamble with their lives, and they all fled. This also shocked was the warring states closest to Lauren. Although under Lauren's command, the black mist that came to the warring states split into two strands and went around, but the strange ability that came from it still made it difficult for the warring states to restrain the inner shock. The huge suction is secondary. What shocked the warring states the most was that from the black mist that was so close at hand, he felt a strange force similar to the sea floor stone suppressing his fruit ability. Warring states can predict that if it reaches this black fog, the fruit's ability will be completely suppressed. Looking at the black fog that is surging all over the Marinfando territory, a strong sense of powerlessness arises spontaneously in the heart of the warring states. Witnessing the ability of the dark fruit, he in my heart no more thoughts of victory. At this moment, Lauren's flat voice floated into warring states' ears like the straw that broke the camel's back. "Now you should have seen through the reality. I will ask you one last time, whether you choose to marry out of ace, or choose to let the war continue." There was deep despair in his eyes, and Zongguo lowered his head helplessly. He couldn't hold his hands any tighter. He gritted his teeth and said 3 words, "Stop. I promise you." When he raised his head again, Sengoku's eyes were full of determination. "But I have one condition. Let your people leave Marinfando first, and then I will give ace to you." "Yes, you made a wise choice." Lauren nodded. "Okay Hades. Stop." "Okay, Lord Lauren." Hades in midair slammed his mouth open, and the black mist that filled the audience flowed back and poured into Hades' body again, but it was swallowed by Hades in a moment. As if it never happened. Warring states took off the navy coat on his body slowly, folded it neatly and put it on the ground aside, stared at the justice behind the coat, and said solemnly, "This war is the defeat of the navy, but if you close your hands according to the agreement, even if the old man puts his life on the line, he will make you pay the price." "No." Roran also glanced at the navy coat on the ground with emotion. "If it weren't for our differences, we might be friends." Zongguo glanced at Lauren, waved to the adjutant behind him, and said with relief, "Let them stop. I agree to Lauren's proposal as a naval marshal and let them go." The adjutant nodded, turned and left, conveying the message layer by layer. As the news spread in the middle of the field, many navies showed different emotions. Some were secretly grateful for the end of the war, some were dissatisfied and angry with the decision of the warring states. And some were sighed at the defeat of the navy. But there is no doubt that this largest war since the beginning of the era of great seafaring has finally ended. Chapter 160 Open black lens bracket new era close black lens bracket. "Okay, Uncle Whitebeard, you can let your people evacuate first." Roran turned around and found that Whitebeard was in an extremely abnormal state. The hand that clenched Kong Yunchi was trembling visibly to the naked eye. Whitebeard's eyes were extremely blood red, and the expression on his face became slightly hideous due to anger. Roland asked in surprise, "Uncle Whitebeard, what's wrong with you?" Whitebeard turned his head, looked straight at Roland, and asked word by word, "Roran, you just said that this was from Blackbeard. You said this," grabbed Hades next to him in his hands, and Lauren nodded, "Yes, that Blackbeard said his real name was Marshall T." "What, Uncle Whitebeard, he provoked you?" "Yes, it's him," Whitebeard said angrily. "It was he who handed Ace to the Navy. Where is he now? I met Blackbeard in this direction. His ship was sunk by me. Life or death is uncertain." Raising his finger in the direction of the Gate of Justice, Laurent persuaded Whitebeard, "Uncle Whitebeard, now you and the people of your pirate group are not suitable to continue fighting. Let's stop for now and let everyone leave Ma Linfin first. Rescue Ace more. Let's talk about Blackbeard later." "You're right, I was impulsive. Take a deep breath and press down on your inner emotions. Whitebeard also understands that now is not the time to fight. It's just that the anger just now made him temporarily lose his mind." After Lauren's persuasion to restore clarity, Whitebeard waved his hand. "Sons, it's time to leave Marin Vando. We'll take Ace home." After hearing the news, the pirates cheered and cheered, in stark contrast to the sad-faced Navy crowd. "Oh, we won. Fantastic. Daddy. Lauren. Amidst the cheers of the pirates, the huge Moby Dick took the lead, leading a group of ships to slowly sail out of the Marin Vando. The naval warships that stood in front of the Whitebeard pirates' fleet retreated by 3 points, making way for the Whitebeards and his party. Yee. Looking at the mighty pair of ships in front of him, Doflamingo laughed uncontrollably. "It's really spectacular. The Navy actually lost. The rules are defined by the winner. From now on, Lauren is the uncrowned king of this sea." With his eyes under the unique sunglasses, he stared meaningfully at Lauren, who was standing in the center of the audience. "Should I tell him the truth behind the Tianlong people?" Behind Doflamingo, Hancock has completely entered the nympho mode. His body is as soft as if he has lost his bones, and he is lying in a sedan chair pulled by 2 giant snakes, and his 2 red cheeks are about to drip. Looking at Luo Lun with his eyes full of heart, Lord Luo Lun is really handsome, and his concubine is too beautiful. And thousands of miles away, Morgans looked sharply at the photo on the table in front of him, and said, "It's really tangled, I should choose that one as a newspaper." Although the video phone bug that was planted in Marin Vando was completely destroyed by the Warring States period, Morgans still sent a group of well-trained newsbirds to take pictures of Marin Vando's follow-up films one by one. That's it. Thinking for a moment, Morgans took out a photo of the final negotiation between Lauren and Sengoku, picked up the pen beside him and swiped on the paper to write the headline of the current issue. Looking at the topic he drafted with satisfaction, Morgans waved his hand. "Hurry up and write the whole process of this war into the newspaper and print it out. Send all the newsbirds to distribute the newspaper for free. I want the whole world to know the result of the war." Quote. Under the reflection of the setting sun of Ma Lin Fando, the figure of Warring States appeared a little stooped. Watching the last ship of the Whitebeard pirates leave Ma Lin Fando, Warring States waved slowly behind him. "Hand over Ace." After waiting for a while, Sengoku turned his head suspiciously, who couldn't get a response from his deputy, and saw that his old comrade Carp woke up at some point, wrapped in bandages all over his body and came behind him in a wheelchair. "You are awake." Sengoku's hoarse voice was mixed with a bit of deepness. "We lost. I know. Lauren disrupted all our plans, and everything failed. His strength is no longer something we can contend with, and this problem is still a headache for the Tianlong people. I'm getting old too. The pirates of the new era will be handed over to the navy of the new era. Carp, this time I'm going to retire. Then I'll also retire together. Retire, and take good care of my 2 poor grandsons. Speaking of which, this war was caused by your grandson Ace, and your son and another grandson also caused great losses to the navy. Warring States, we are all about to retire, so don't think about work all the time, let's think about life in the future. Seeing that you are injured like this, I won't care about you anymore, I'll push you. The orange sunset reflects a messy Marin Vando. The Navy twins who have fought from the old times to the present are bickering and walking back to the naval headquarters with each other's arms. With the end of the war, the Navy is destined to usher in a major innovation. The Door of Justice, PFF. Spit out a large mouthful of seawater. Blackbeard dragged his fat body with difficulty and climbed onto a piece of ship debris, and lay weakly on the huge wooden board. Blackbeard's eyes stared blankly at the sky, feeling inwardly a throbbing. Wow! A huge splash of water rose into the sky, and a huge black shadow with a size comparable to a sea king floated up from the water. It was the San Juan Evil Wolf of the Blackbeard Pirates. Although he was also a devil fruit person, his size was too huge. The San Juan Evil Wolf who fell into the water directly touched a reef under the sea with his feet. Although he didn't have the strength to swim out, he didn't sink in. It was he who grabbed Blackbeard just now and let Blackbeard let him escape the end of drowning. Raising his hand to cover his chest, feeling the beating of his heart, Blackbeard whispered, 12 trials, Lauren. At this time, a news bird flew slowly in the sky. After noticing Blackbeard and others, it threw down a few newspapers with its claws, then fluttered its wings and flew away into the distance. One of the newspapers that was slowly falling from the sky was right above Blackbeard. His eyes caught a name, and Blackbeard suddenly stood up and grabbed the newspaper in his hand. Blackbeard was holding in his hand the news that Morgans had just written. Above the eye-catching picture of Lauren on the front page, there was a very conspicuous line of words: The Navy lost, brand new, the Age of Destruction, God of Destruction. Please download the underlined version of the novel.